again, everybody. Today, Nick and I are back with inreallore. I have been told that we will be going over every single one of the Warhammer factions. I'm still working on my Retributor squad. If you haven't seen my previous video, we'll link it up below. All right, Nick, take it away.
And to clarify, today I'm not going to be necessarily going over every faction. I'm going to be going over the major factions that you can play in the tabletop and giving a bit of a brief overview so that way you have an understanding of these factions.
Wait, there are more factions than what you can play?
There's more in the general world.
So like when we were on Warhammer.com or whatever, and you were showing me all the factions I could have bought initially, are those the main ones we're going over today?
Exactly,
okay,
yes.
Sweet.
So I'm like, if you were to look at wahapedia.ru, which is where you can get a lot of your rules. Yes,
Did you say Wahapedia?
Wahapedia.ru.
What the hell?
That's the easiest place to get all your rules when you're playing the game because it's just all collated into one place.
Yeah.
It's .ru because the guy running it is in Russia. And GW cannot sue someone who's in Russia, so he's just sitting there with his pirate hat. Are you
serious?
Yes.
Of course. He's in Russia, right? Like,
yeah,
holy crap,
so
that's awesome.
There's things like the Astra Telepathica, Astra Cartographica, a few other factions that are in the Imperium that like you can like kind of see that are in there as factions, but it's just because they have a couple models, as well as things like, I mean, I'm not really going to talk about Titans because no one really plays those because they're a full army, one model. So I'm just going to be focusing on the big ones and ones that you can play.
I hear today will be a very long episode.
Yeah, it's going to be a long one.
Team, I'm going to try to finish my Retributor squad before the end of this episode.
Listen, I'm already tired. I think my voice is going to hurt by the end of today.
It's going to be great. I mean, we're doing it for you, right? We're doing it for you. And also, I actually have no idea what the different factions are. Aside from my guys, Adepta Sororitas, Tau, because he plays Tau, and Space Marines, because they seem to be every goddamn where. So
exactly.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea of what a faction is, because you do have different civilizations, such as the Aeldari, you have the Imperium of Man, but there are factions within that. A faction is a full army. It is like saying, my faction is the Navy. My faction is the Army. My faction is Air Force. Any of those ones are factions, and they are within, like, say, the U.S. Army. If you go back in history, Romans would be a faction, and then you might have the Persians. So you have different armies from within each place. Humans are mostly all together. Then you have Chaos, and they're kind of subdivided in that way.
Okay.
I am going to start, though, with the Astra Militarum.
All right, you got pictures for me?
I do have a picture for you. So the Astra Militarum is the main body of the military of the Imperium of Man. It is the everyday human. So typically, they're 6 foot tall men and women that go out there and fight the horrors of man and are the
frontliners right there too?
They're the frontliners.
Yeah.
They defend from everywhere. They have flak armor that, if you were to look at it from our standard, is really damn good and will protect you from bullets and very high tech. But it is jokingly called a t-shirt because it does absolutely nothing for any of the insane weapons that exist in the 40k universe.
So are they like a weak army?
I'll get there.
Okay.
They also have a high-powered laser gun called the lasgun that can blast craters in concrete, remove limbs in instants, never falter due to wear. It can be thrown in the mud, run over by tanks, can be recharged by sunlight. And all of that is to say it is the weakest weapon in the galaxy.
Okay.
It is called a flashlight.
All right.
That kind of gives you, just to start off, an idea of that's the power.
So you started with the weakest faction, didn't
I'm
you?
starting with the weakest faction.
I expect my girls to be at the end.
But the point is not that they're the weakest, or that one is the weakest. It is the fact that when the Guard, because they're also called the Imperial Guard, are deployed, they are deployed in millions. They don't have to have the strongest gun because there are hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands of shots a second.
Okay.
So it's a flashlight, but if any man who does not fear the power of the Lasgon has not had to run through a field of thousands of them. To quote, the Demolisher, the Vanquisher, even the mighty Death Strike missile launcher pale in comparison to the sheer firepower of trillions of Lasguns unleashing hell in unison. So they deploy, and they also, it's got some kind of World War I, World War II vibes, because when they deploy their...
They look like it, just based on the picture you showed me.
Yeah,
like
they
front line.
Yeah, they deploy thousands of them, and they stick in with in their trenches.
Yeah.
And then they have tens of thousands of tanks that come out and just bury the ground beneath and just deep the dirt. They have artillery that's there and starts hammering the earth until it is cracking itself under the sheer weight of shells being launched upon them. The survival rate of a guardsman in his first deployment is less than 5%.
This does remind me of World War I. Send everyone on the front lines.
And it's just because because this was back when I was introducing it, is the idea that there are billions and quadrillions of humans.
Yeah.
Who cares about one man? The inches in a battlefield can be measured in tens of thousands of lives. So if my life, I can give it to get 1 inch on the battlefield, that is a success. The Emperor has protected me enough, and I have been filled with the will of the Emperor. Because they are fully indoctrinated into the cult of the Imperium. They and follow the Imperial Creed, which is that the God Emperor is a god.
Mm-hmm.
So they are emboldened and feel like it is there. They will run into a field of Tyranids, which are bug monsters, because the Emperor protects. Now, the other thing, too, is that because it's less than 5%, the veterans of the Guard are the most steel ballsiest men and women in the entire galaxy.
How come?
Because they've just survived.
Oh, okay, got it. Yeah,
it's just purely by survival.
Do they have special powers in the within the faction?
No,
they're just like
they're just veterans. They're
balls.
They're just hardened men and women.
They're badasses.
They are absolutely badasses. There is a story about a Catachan jungle fighter who had his arm bitten off by a Tyranid, and while they were wrapping his arm up and bandaging him, he was tossing grenades at the army. He was just like, nope. So they just wade into battle, and there was multiple different factions that kind of give you, or sub-factions and regiments. You have the Cadians, which are the typical military. They are the ones that you see everywhere with the flak jet and the green and the brown, and they just are trained from birth to be warriors. They will break down their first lasgun when they're 5. They will fire it and have perfect shots by 10. At 16, they will be put into war.
Yeah.
They are perfect warriors.
Damn.
There's the Catachan jungle fighters, which come from a death world where even the plants are trying to kill you. So by pure natural selection, everyone that comes from there is like Arnold Schwarzenegger jacked. Even the women have biceps on their biceps.
Amazonian women.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And they have their own style. You also have the Death Corps of Krieg, which come from a nuclear blasted death world. And they look like World War I fighters, soldiers. They have gas masks on constantly.
Yeah.
And they have such a desire to fight for the Emperor.
Blue Bomber.
That they have to be stopped from charging to their death.
Wow. But isn't that the point? Why stop someone from charging to death if that's what you're asking them to do?
Because sometimes you don't need to sacrifice yourself so willingly. They're also ultra depressed, where they will actually bring down the morale of other regiments around.
This is the first one, right? We're talking about?
This is just the Astra Militarum. So this is all the same kind of thing, or the same faction, just different regiments within. They have artillery, they have tanks, they have tactical nukes that they use. When they are deployed, everything will crack and crumble beneath the weight of the Guard. In the tabletop,
you make it sound really intense.
Yeah, because it kind of is. The tabletop, though, you'll have 150 models on the table.
Mm-hmm.
And most armies will be able to blow through 10 of them, or at a time, just wipe them away. But there's more guard coming, constantly coming. And on the tabletop, they actually have artillery cannons and intercontinental ballistic missiles that you can deploy, which is dumb because their range is enough that you can fire it at the next game shop.
Okay.
So you could be playing, it used to be it had infinite range. So
are you kidding me?
Someone in San Francisco could call Toronto and be like, hey, I just made a shot at one of your tables.
Oh, dear God. Did anyone ever do that, though?
Yes.
Are you kidding me? That's lame.
But it's often there's enough range on their artillery that they can be fired at other tables at tournaments. They don't allow that anymore because it's dumb, but it was something that they could do. Now, the thing is that when you have that much death, you are constantly going, there is a type of unit called commissars. They are political officers. They are representatives of the emperor, and they are there to maintain morale. And typically what their role is to ensure that you either do the charge, you get the mission in, and you try and make sure that everyone is working together. Often during charges, it means that if you are not going to charge, you get shot.
What?
If you try and flee, you get shot.
I mean, makes sense.
Because to them, you die a hero or you die an example.
Okay, that's powerful.
Yeah.
I need to use that with my trainees.
You
did not hear that. I'm totally joking.
So you have those. You also have a couple other things. There are some sanctioned mutants. They're called abhumans. But there's something called the Ogren, which they're ogres, fantasy ogres that were brought in.
Different from the ogre clan, right? Or that's the Orkz. Sorry,
different from the Orkz, yes.
My fault.
Because these are still humans. They're just mutated a little bit.
Okay.
They're 9 feet tall, big, burly, and dumb. Absolutely dumb. And they follow orders like nothing. They have very simple weapons because they cannot operate them.
I do good. I kill man.
There is a quote with an ogre who boss asked me what was my favorite part of being in the guard. And I said, it was following orders, sir. And he slapped another medal upon me. They are dumb. They just follow orders and they like their veterans. Yes, boss.
Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So that is the first faction. That is the Astra Militarum. They are the bulwark. They are the main body of the empire, of the Imperium. Next up, we have the Adepteus Mechanicus. The flesh is weak. Replace with toaster.
Okay, you got a picture for me?
I have a picture for you. 1 second.
You can keep them off screen, by the way, because then you'll just pop them up, right?
Yeah.
Can you zoom in? Okay, you said the flesh is weak, replace with toaster?
Yes.
What? So are they still humans?
They are humans. They were originally from Mars, and they are technophiles. They seek to find perfection in the mechanical and find that the flesh is weak. They believe in knowledge, and they believe in steel more than they believe in the actual human. They value knowledge more than a single human life.
Okay. But they're still human, eh?
But they're still human.
Okay.
They are the only religious subfaction. They are the only ones that are allowed to have a religion outside of the sanctioned one.
Excuse me, but what about my sororitas?
They follow the Imperial Creed that the Emperor of Man is a god. The only religious subfaction. So
okay.
They don't necessarily believe that the Emperor is a god.
Yeah.
They consider him the Omnissiah, which is like a messiah of the machine god, but they believe in the machine god.
Yeah.
That there is a spirit within every machine and it must be appeased. nowadays, if say your car was breaking it down, you would take it to a mechanic and he would try and like understand what's going on. And like you would go to the manual or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
If your car broke down in the 40,000 millennium, you would have this dude who's just like, has like tentacles coming out everywhere, multiple arms, his eyes are missing, like he just covered in a red cloth. It goes over and he starts chanting in like binary. He pulls out an incense thing, starts waving that around while he chants even more.
What the hell are you talking about?
And then he rubs it in oil and he chants some more and prays.
Does it fix my car?
To fix the car.
Does it fix it?
Maybe not.
Okay, I was going to say, if it fixed it, I don't care what you do. Just fix my goddamn vehicle.
They are software developers where they're just like, please work, please work, please work,
Oh,
please
dear
work.
God. No wonder you resonate with them.
They're the only one that are allowed to have that multiple, like, not believe the emperor is a god because they make all of this stuff and you don't want to piss them off. I have a quote to tell you.
Got to find this leg. Sorry. Okay, go.
From the moment I understood the weakness of my flesh, it disgusted me. I craved the strength and certainty of steel. I aspired to the purity of the blessed machine. Your kind cling to your flesh as if it will not decay and fail you. One day the crude biomass you call a temple will wither and you will beg my kind to save you. But I am already saved, for the machine is immortal.
So these are Terminator people.
We have more Terminators later on. But
So-
yeah, they will replace themselves.
To a layman like myself, how would you describe these guys? First ones were humans, right?
Cyborgs.
Cyborgs. There
Yeah.
we go. We're going to keep a list of this because I want a list of this so that I understand what each faction is.
Yes, they are cyborgs. There are a few things to them that are heretical. Progress and new ideas are heretical. You do not research into things that don't already exist. To them, all knowledge in the universe already exists and they can be learned from the past, which kind of makes sense to them because they are coming on the heels of the dark age of technology where they had much superior technology than what the era of 40k has. You can't improve on what is already there because the technology of the 40k universe is severely degraded in comparison to what had come before. So they're constantly looking for something called STCs, Standard Template Constructs, which were used in the Dark Age of Technologies as tools to construct anything with vast amounts of knowledge from that era. And if they find a planet that has one, they will pay any price, or if it's a small enough planet, just kill everyone there to get that STC. Some soldiers at one point found an STC to make that just makes fancy knives. These were given to the Space Marines, and each of the soldiers that found the STC were given a planet each.
What's the STC? Sorry.
It's like a giant database with a 3D printer.
Seriously?
Yeah. So complete STCs will build anything that's in their repository of knowledge. It was often used in generational ships, so that way when the ship arrived at the planet, they would have all of the knowledge of humanity when they had left and would be able to build whatever they needed to in order to survive on this new planet.
Okay.
Yeah. The other heresy is AI, the abominable intelligence.
Isn't it always?
It's always. And this was because during the Dark Age of Technology, a faction called the Men of Iron rose up against humanity and drove it down into the Age of Strife. It had almost completely obliterated humanity as a civilization in the galaxy. So instead, the Adepteus Mechanicus focus on their own knowledge, using themselves, becoming a computer themselves, and just adopting their own flesh into metal.
We're still on the hate skin make toaster.
Yes, hate skin make toaster. This is why when they actually try and make workers, they don't use robots. They instead just, take a human and take out their frontal lobe and program them to do whatever they want.
Babies.
Yes. They'll make servitors to do what they want to. Their military side of it, which is a playable faction, is called the Scutari. And they leave just enough of the frontal lobe so that way they can take commands and can act somewhat independently, but they are still programmed to do what they want. But yeah, they just take whoever they want and just scoop at the brains, program them for tasks. Remember, humans have no value to them.
I was going to say, you told me not to take, Warhammer seriously, right? That's the point of the world.
Yep.
But medically, taking out someone's brains and keeping them still alive is very hard.
This is 40,000 years in the future.
I just can't see a world where that's easily doable.
Yeah, well.
Okay, quick question for you.
Yeah.
While you're, my Retributor squad, are these basically, is this my main general and these are my 4 sub-generals, or what's the deal? Because, I think when I'm building these 4 will have the same options for weapons. And then this is my main person. What's the deal with this versus my combat box?
That's just a sergeant. So this is a unit, and that's the sergeant of, the leader of this group.
And when I get my Christmas box, am I getting, the god of my group, or what?
Yeah, so you're going to get a major leader.
Okay.
When we go through actual army construction itself, I'll show you how that kind of works.
Okay, cool.
But in the tabletop, these would be always working together versus a leader like Morinval will just be separate.
Oh, so I can't separate these if I was playing a game?
No.
Interesting.
They stick together.
Okay.
Back to the Adepteus Mechanicus. To give you a little bit of an idea of how little they care for human life, there was once a fleet of refugees that had showed up at a Forge World. They had been running from the horrors of the galaxy, and they had just barely got out of there, and they were looking to seek refuge. The local Mechanicus saw all these ships, and they looked at their numbers, and they saw, oh, we don't have enough servitors. That ship. They brought them down, and they made them all servitors. The rest of the ships were left in orbit to slowly starve to death. Because it didn't matter to them. The other thing, too, is that knowledge is often not, because it's all separate and there's knowledge everywhere. Often there's only 1 or 2 tech priests that actually understand how something works. So they have something that kind of looks like a chicken walker that they don't know how to turn it off and turn it back on again. So if they are transporting it, they just rope it up and let it run around in circles. Because if they turn it off, they don't know how to turn it on again, because the one tech priest that knew how to operate them had died. Yeah, so they're
I mean,
it's
what do you want me to say to that?
It's you have a server and you don't know what to do with it, so you just don't touch it. You leave it alone. And okay, whatever, it works. If I touch it, just pray that it works again, whatever.
It doesn't sound like a very good server, but okay.
It's not. Mm-hmm. Their weapons range from they range from basically electrical arcs to radium weapons. Literally shooting pellets of radium to give people cancer. And also using phosphor. If you know what white phosphor is, it's a war crime.
Oh, crap. I put it in here.
And that is the Adepteus Mechanicus, kind of in a nutshell. Next up, we have the Space Marines.
Oh, I know them. I know them.
They are the poster boys of Warhammer 40k. You see them everywhere. They are 2.5 meters in height, of hunks of muscle jammed into power armor with extra organs, 2 hearts, and genetically modified to be stronger.
Whoa, you have this one?
That was from the previous...
it's from our friend. Yes. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. They are encased in armor that is made to withstand tactical nukes. They are basically polar bears in power armor that move faster than anything that size has any right to move. They were originally created by the Emperor, along with their fathers. There is 20 each of them, the Primarchs. In 30k, half of these Primarchs rebelled along with all of their sons against the Imperium in something called the Horus Heresy. I'm not getting into it. There are 30 books just in that event alone.
You've told me, you said this word way too many times, and I just feel like I don't want to go into it. But
it's best not to go into it.
Heresy.
Yeah.
The Horus Heresy. The Horus Heresy.
After the Horus Heresy, the ones that remained loyal were split into smaller chapters. So instead of being 200,000 strong, they were actually split into chapters that were 1,000 in strength each. Not all the loyal chapters or all the loyal Space Marines followed this idea. Some of them just outright kind of like
chaos,
ripped the book up. No, these are still loyal,
okay,
but they just did not care for the book. I'm not going to go into details exactly on each one, so I'm just going to rant off a whole bunch of the different flavors and go from there. So, in the Space Marines, you have furries, technophiles, those that like walls, racists that decided to make it competitive, Boy Scouts, emo sneaky crows, sharks, vampires, Knights of the Round Table that don't know about the Fallen, nice guys that like fire, speedy Mongolians, ultra depressed vampires, fuck alien in particular, Mr. Steal Your Shit, and ultra angry vampires.
Okay, wait. Can we go back here?
Yeah.
Furries, is that a real thing, or is this you giving me cute little names for them?
No, that's the Space Wolves.
Like they're called furries.
They're jokingly referred to as furries because they have fangs. They're extra furry, and they were supposed to be like Vikings, but they're now very. They're very like. When they're actually made into Space Marines, because a Space Marine is not born, they are made from regular humans.
Mm-hmm.
If that process doesn't go right, they turn into wolfen, which are just like werewolves, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
So the joke is that they're furries.
That's cute.
Yeah. There is one special version of the Space Marines. These are called Grey Knights, and in my list of Mimi jokes that I make about it, these are the Southern Baptist demon exorcists.
Okay.
They are powerful psychers at base, so they are like top tier when it comes to psychic powers, and they are specifically tasked with fighting demons and the forces of chaos.
Mm-hmm.
That is all they do. They don't like having their presence known to the general population, because if the general population knows about them, they know about chaos. And knowing about chaos invites corruption and invites chaos into you, which can then lead to an entire planet being destroyed.
I remember that.
Yeah. So when they are deployed, they have a scorched earth policy. It's basically, if you're a guard and you're fighting on a world and you happen to see a red satanic demon run past you and you see a Space Marine, you go, yay, Space Marines. Oh, they're gray. Oh, no. And then you're just dead. He's like, we're saved. No, we're not. The stupidest piece of lore that was ever retconned with regards to this is that the Grey Knights, because they have to have a complete iron will. They have iron minds. They are pure in their mind. One of their most famous characters has a sword, a demonic sword, that will corrupt anyone that comes near it. And so he actually holds onto it constantly and resists its temptation. And if anyone comes near him, they will be tempted by them. Yeah.
One ring to rule them all.
But he is such an iron-willed person that he can hold that sword and use it without being corrupted. But there was once where they were fighting alongside the battle sisters, the Sororitas, and they felt their conviction and purity failing. To prevent corruption by the demons, they murdered all of the sisters and rubbed their pure blood onto their armor.
Excuse me.
Yes. This lore has kind of been retconned because when it comes to the lore of 40k, things change. Because things can be retconned because...
What does retcon mean?
It means it's just kind of removed from credibility.
Okay.
This is mostly because you're seeing the lore as a perspective of someone in 40k, so records may be incorrect. So that's all the loyal Space Marines. On the Chaos side, these are the ones that have fallen to Chaos. They followed their Primarchs and now exist in the warp and exist to burn everything. They are extra spicy. They have spikes. They're mutating. Some of them have demons that come into their bodies and exist with them.
Chaos Marines.
Chaos Space Marines.
So they're still part of the Space Marine faction, though, right?
They're under the Chaos banner.
What does that mean?
So they are a force of chaos, essentially.
Okay.
I will rattle these off in the same way. You have Burn the Galaxy, Bland Edition. Terrorists that like to wear your skin. Stinky poo-poo boys. Spies that might be loyal. Incels. Dusty nerds. Choir boys who summon demons. Rage Against the Everything. BDSM huggy boys. And Burn the Galaxy because fuck you edition.
Okay, who comes up with these names?
I did.
Oh, okay. All right. So this is Nick's take on a lot of these things.
I'm not going into it. I am just rattling off stupidity about it.
You guys can chat with Nick about this in the comments.
Because Space Marines, they're everywhere. There's we can go into detail, but the main thing you need to know is that they have bolters. They fight in thousands. They can have all these different colors, and yeah, that's it. They have Terminator armor, which is heavier, and they have tanks and blah.
I mean, just a reminder for all you listening, you guys are probably 40k fans, guys and girls. Let us know what your favorite faction is down below.
Guys and girl.
What's up, guys? No, I'm pretty sure there are women out there that play.
There absolutely is.
It's when you look up the stats on who watches our video, it's 94.3% men and 3% females. And I'm pretty sure that's me, my mom, and my sister. Let's be honest, they're watching my videos and that's about it.
All right, next up, I don't have a picture for this one because it is the Adepta Sororitas.
Drop mic.
So the Adepta Sororitas are the military
I will actually
arm.
Listen to this one.
Yes, they are the military arm of the Empire. They are the holy warriors of the God Emperor, and they have pure zeal in their belief. They go into battle singing hymns and war chants, praising the God Emperor as they go through. If they falter or at any time, they are put into a squad called the Sisters Repenta, where all they wear is just a brown bag, and they are given a big chainsaw sword, and they are just thrown into battle. And they will fight through wades of everything because they believe that the Emperor will protect them. And the funny thing is that their faith is so strong that they cause miracles.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Okay, do tell.
So their faith is so strong that they'll wade into battle and a grenade will just not go off.
What?
Or they'll be able to summon things. The main character that has come up into this is Saint Celestine. She is a living saint because she will die and be reborn. She is filled with the grace of the God Emperor.
So she's unkillable.
She is unkillable.
Yeah.
And they believe so purely that it causes and manifests these miracles into reality. So it might be somewhat based in the warp. There's conflicting things on whether or not it does. It's kind of stupid if it's not. But it is because they pour so much belief. Because through faith and through their emotions, they have made the Emperor literally a god. In the tabletop, this actually comes through with something called miracle dice. At the beginning of every round, you roll a dice, and if it's a 6, you put it off to the side, and you can replace that at any time with any dice roll.
I was going to ask how I can play with my miracles.
Yeah. So it's basically you have a pool of dice that you can just be oh, I didn't make that shot. Miracle dice.
Nice. And it can be whatever I want it to be, or no?
You roll it to see what it will be. So it could be a 1 or 2, 3, 4. It depends. You might actually want that one for specific things.
So it's still based on chance.
Yeah.
But I thought miracles are not based on chance. They're based on faith.
No, it's purely it's not faith because you're rolling dice.
I'm just giving you a hard time.
But they are the crazy fanatics. One of their tanks is a pipe organ missile launcher.
Can I just hold on?
They drop churches onto the battlefield.
There was a procession here. Oh, I'm not going to see if I'm not going to be able to find it right now because I have too much stuff in here.
That is a funeral procession.
Check out my first video. You'll see it.
That is a funeral procession.
Yeah.
That is sent out into the battlefield. these women are absolute bosses. And not only that, they have lobotomized babies.
They do, although they look like little old men. No, let me just like...
Yeah, they look like...
I want to go off on this for a second.
Because they're background.
Yeah, if you actually look at this baby here, it's not a baby. It looks like a 70-year-old man with a lobotomized head on a fat little baby.
Listen. Some babies look like old men. That is just the way they are.
They actually really do. I'm not going to lie. They get cuter after. When you give birth to a baby, they have a cone head, wrinkly skin, and they smell pretty bad. And then after you clean them up and so forth, I mean, look where they come from, right?
Yeah.
The going joke is, you can drop a baby, they'll bounce right back up. Just give it to mom. Just make sure you put them on mom and you'll be okay. But if you drop a baby, they are bouncy. Give them a few days and then they start to get cute.
Yeah. So, yeah, they drop churches into the battlefield and they'll sing hymns. When they walk into a battlefield with the guard will actually start to fight harder because they are like praising the god emperor and they're like, their zeal is that much stronger. They have their mech walkers that you'll have one in the combat patrol is literally a heretic that has been strapped to it, filled with drugs and psycho indoctrination. And on a trigger word, they just run in and just murder everything. They have arco-flagellants, which you have 3 of in the combat patrol. Same thing. They just have like flails for arms now, and they're just like lobotomized and sent into battle to do what they need to do. The sisters are...
Okay, why does my really religious faction have lobotomized babies?
Because they love it. It's cute.
That doesn't seem right.
But even that, like... Weird things happen around the sisters. Like when Saint Celestine was first made the living saint, she literally showed up in golden armor with their new wings, with her tassels and everything being dragged along by doves. There were no doves on the planet that she came from.
Yeah.
Doves just appeared because doves.
YOLO. Because YOLO. Say it with me.
Forgiveness breeds laxity, and mercy is what the weak offer. You have sinned against the god emperor. Prepare to offer your penance in the only meaningful way possible, through pain and through suffering. So there are different orders in the military side of the sisters. They also have a non-military side, or like hospitalers, which are more like your classic nun-nurse situation.
You say nun-nurse situation?
Yeah.
Not all nuns are nurses.
Not all nuns are nurses, but
are all nurses nuns?
No. They're not, and not all nurses are women. There are some men nurses.
There are a lot of men nurses.
There's a lot of men nurses.
A ton.
So they also go out and they do charity work and that kind of stuff. But the militant side just want, if you are a Xenos, a heretic, a mutant, you will be purged with the bolter, the melter, and the flamer. Like, they will sing hymns to the god emperor as they are roasting your body alive.
Okay.
So that is the Adepta Sororitas.
Are you sure you want to play my army?
Oh, yeah, I do.
My army seems cooler than yours.
I'm going to get to my army. My army's fun. I like my...
Okay. Are you saving it for the end?
It's later on because it is Xenos and everyone wants to have the Imperium first because, that's the way it is.
What?
Next, because it's humanity, it's more easy to
Did you say it's more easy? Guys, my husband, who has a literature or a Bachelor of Arts degree, just said more easy. Apparently, it didn't really work.
All right. Next up, we have the Talons of the Emperor. So these are the personal bodyguards of the Emperor himself. So the one in the middle.
Whoa, was this the one other box I was thinking about getting?
Yes.
Yeah.
The guy in the middle, that's the Emperor.
That's pretty cool.
When he was alive.
Wait, do you think I could have, if I got that box, would I have had the Emperor?
No.
Okay.
No, the Emperor's a corpse.
Well, I don't know.
These are the bodyguards of the Emperor and his will. The main bulk of this faction is made up by the Custodes. These are, they're basically Space Marines, if Space Marines were the factory line genetic soldiers. The Custodes are instead a unique piece of art. There is only ever 10,000 of them.
Oh, yeah. That's what I found really interesting of them.
Yeah. They usually don't retire. And
So they just die
They
off, right?
have been on duty and protecting the Golden Throne for those 10,000 years. They will stand immoving for centuries and act within milliseconds if a threat appears.
So let me guess. The 10,000, you have to die off, right? To get a new one?
Often, some, yes, they will die off and they'll have to get in, but they try and keep it to the 10,000.
Yeah.
But the thing is that when a Custode actually slows, and when I mean slow, I mean like they're less than 5 millisecond reaction time. Like the reaction time is changed by a millisecond. They are retired because they are incapable of protecting the Emperor if their reaction time has slowed that much.
Oh, so they do retire them out.
They do retire them out. And at that point, they become something called the Ears of the Emperor, and they go out into the Imperium to listen for threats that could be made against Terra or anything else. They're not sneaky because these are 10-foot tall Greek god statues.
I remember that. That's why I wanted to play them. And then, you showed me the Lobotomous babies. But before that, I was actually going to pick that faction. They look pretty cool.
Yeah, and the thing is, they are absolutely powerful warriors. One Custode is capable of destroying an entire regiment of guard.
Yeah.
They are worth 10 to 50 Space Marines. They will hold, 100 of them will hold off an entire Tyranid hive fleet if necessary. They are that strong.
Question for you.
Yeah.
It seems like there are certain factions that are stronger than others in terms of one of these guys is 50 Space Marines. So when you play the game, how do you equalize that?
Sometimes lore does not match gameplay.
Okay.
So if you were to run a Space Marine army, you might be running 50 to 60 models. If you were playing with the Custodes, you'd be playing with 15 to 20. That's how it kind of comes out in the gameplay. But it is funny because you would look at one of the matchups boxes that they had was Custodes versus Genestealer cults, which I'll explain Genestealer cults. But it's you get 10 Custodes versus 30 models. And it's no, lol, there's no winning that. It is Custodes all the way. But they balance it out in games. So that way it's not a feels bad moment, right?
Okay.
And also to ensure that you don't have too low of a model count, because then it doesn't become easy for you to win with a low model count.
It does or doesn't?
Doesn't. It's harder. Not only do they maintain their peak physical performance by regularly having things called blood sports, where they will, one group of Custodes will attempt to...
Like the Spartans.
Yeah, they will attempt to infiltrate the Golden Throne. One side infiltrates, the other side tries to defend. Mm-hmm. And that is how they keep themselves up to date on how to protect the Emperor. But they are also poets and scholars. When the Great Crusade, which is when the Emperor was going out and reconquering the galaxy, the Custodes were his ever confidants. If he needed advice, he didn't go to his Primarchs. He went to his Custodes because they had his ear. They listened to him and they gave him advice, and he would often listen to them more than he would listen. He would listen to his Primarchs. Mm-hmm. They're also given the duty of protecting weapons and technology from the dark age of technology. There's vaults deep within Terra that have weapons capable of destroying entire solar systems. And one faction is dedicated only to doing that. There are different factions, again, so the Order militants within the Battle Sisters, or different Space Marine chapters. You have different Custodes that are designated to do different things. One of them is just protecting those weapons. Another one is what they do is they actually go out into the galaxy, and there might have been a prophecy of something about a random guardsman. And this Custode will show up and defend this person with their lives, because this person will have a major effect on the Imperium in the future. Often a lot of main characters that are in the Guard were actually protected by this segment of Custodes.
Okay.
Which can be funny because you're a 6 foot tall dude who's in the middle of a battlefield.
I just poked myself.
You're just a regular guardsman that's out in the battlefield, and suddenly this 10 foot tall Greek god in golden armor shows up and says, "I'm here to protect you."
Protect me all you want.
Quote, "Give thanks to those most courageous and loyal of guardians, the Adeptus Custodes, who stand in constant vigil over the Emperor's palace. A veritable legion of warriors ready to lay down their lives without doubt for the beloved ward of mankind. None pass through the Imperial Palace without their knowledge. Steeped are they in the arcane secrets of the labyrinthine edifice. 10,000 blades await the calls to arms, to defend against any threat from without or within." Custodes actually have a very connected history with the Adepta Sororitas, which I will explain when I actually go into depth about the Sororitas.
When are we going into depth? I thought we already did it.
No, there'll be there's an episode just on the sisters that we'll do.
Because I'm playing the sisters, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So I wanted to do that one early because I figured you would enjoy that.
Yeah, for sure.
These perfect men were not fully capable of protecting the Emperor from all threats, though. None of them are psychers, so none of them have that ability to tap into the warp and make things change. So instead, another order was actually created to fight alongside the Custodes. And this is the Sisters of Silence. All of these women are blanks, and they are, once they've taken their vows, they will never utter a word again in their life.
Can you imagine me becoming a Sister of Silence?
Yeah.
You can?
No, not really. You can't stop talking. The sisters of each of these women, though, are blanks. So remember how I was saying that psychers have like a bright light, and these are like dark black holes, essentially?
Yeah.
So each one of them are anti-psychers, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And give an example of it's like during the Horus Heresy era, there was a Knight Commander, Genestealer Kroll, who was a major Sister of Silence commander, who was also known as the Soulless Queen. It's a badass title.
Does she talk?
No. They have their own way of communicating with one another, as well as the Custodes. They have an intricate sign language that they use.
Mm-hmm.
But they are like trained immensely in order to protect the Emperor. And then also they actually are the ones that are running the black ships. So they have to fight against psychers consistently. So just to give you an idea, a Sister of Silence is the one on the left.
Can you zoom in?
Whoop. Oh, come on. There you go. Yeah.
Do they have ponytails with red hair?
Yeah, they have ponytails.
And why wasn't I shown that one?
Because they're not very well represented in the tabletop at the moment.
Okay.
They're lumped in directly with the Custodes, and there's only about, like, if you see the Retributor Squad box, there's only one box. It can make 2 different types of units, and there's like 1 character model, and that's it. So they're very a small sub faction, essentially.
Totally moved this. They were good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quote on them. "As a child on Gehenna, I remember the stories of the White Maidens, terrifying ghosts that would come in the night to steal away the witchborn and children who had done terrible wrongs. It was said that they could find the wicked no matter how deep in the hive they sank or what forgotten spire they climbed. As I grew, I came to believe such things were no mere superstition. But now that I am an officer of the Great Crusade, bloodied upon the battlefields on score of worlds, I have come to find that my childhood fears were true and quite valid." Because remember, they're blanks. No one wants to be around them. That's the Custodes, and that is the Sisters of Silence.
Okay. So if I got the Custodes box, that was the gold ones, right?
Yep.
So now give me a layman term for them. I got one for you. Gladiators.
Yeah.
Or we can just say Spartans.
Spartans kind of fits in there.
Keep track of this.
Golden
I want a
Boys.
list. Golden Boys.
The Golden Boys. Bananas.
No.
They're actually, people jokingly call them bananas.
No.
Because they're gold.
No.
All right. Next up, we have Knights. Knights are the big robots of the Imperium. So if you take a look.
Oh, that was the other box I was going to get.
Yes.
I really should have. It's more fun to build.
So
These are driving me nuts.
So the Imperial Knights are giant walking machines of death.
Humans or metal?
These are still humans. So
Are you kidding me?
They are piloted by humans.
Okay.
To give you a quote start. Let the power of your knight flow through your veins. Let the ghosts of your throne whisper wisdom into your mind. Let steel be your sinews and fire be your fists. Become your knight as it becomes you, and through symbiosis ascend. So shall you become, so shall you protect your people and slaughter your foes.
What's that movie? Godzilla. They had to, like, it's the Pacific Rim. Pacific Rim. This is Pacific Rim.
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of similar. Yes. They have to bind with their machine and they go there. So the Knights themselves are leftover remnants of the Dark Age of technology. When humanity kind of first reached out to the stars, they went in generational ships with the standard template constructs. And they could make machines from everything, human knowledge, blah, 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 blah. To deal with hostile alien worlds and harvesting and mining from them, they would need big machines. And they created them in order to, at first, do that task. That's why a lot of them have that chainsaw sword, because they were foresting machines, essentially. Eventually, these hostile worlds had big monsters that they needed to protect from. So they started adding armaments to them. And these would stand vigil over these towns. And eventually people would add heraldry to them. And they would be standing there and you would venerate them because you see this big machine and it is protecting you from all of the evils in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And over generations, you add some heraldry to it. The pilots have children. Those children become pilots and they become venerated. And eventually they become houses. And they end up being more powerful than other factions in this town. And eventually the world is just completely controlled by specific houses that are completely in control of these knights. And they end up having a very feudal, very medieval style to them. We are the lords of this world. We protect. It's why they're called knights, is because they have a chivalric code. They're chivalrous. You have them like a steed, essentially. They're like the horses. And they will walk, and you're going to do the babies?
Baby time!
Baby time!
All right, I'm done with these things.
So they are steeped in medieval tradition. They stride into battles on these steeds. Now, some of these houses have traditions that are a little bit on the absurd side because they are hoity-toity knights. Think of the lords from England that are like, oh, I got my tea. I am Lord Chattingweather of blah, 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 blah.
That's how you think a lord talks.
Well, hoity-toity. 1 second.
They're hoity-toity. They are hoity-toity. Where are my lobotomized baby heads?
They end up having absurd names and honors attached to them. I am Lord Highweather of House Highweather, protector of such and such world, honor of the blade, wielder of the vanquisher, the lightbringer, the executioner, blah, 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 blah. They have names and titles forever that go on and on and on. Some of these houses have to read off the victories of their ancestors that could take 20 hours, and they have to do this every single day. They are just crazy knights and crazy lords that are just pompous. To pilot the machine, though, when a previous pilot has passed on or they have died in battle, a new pilot will actually go up and they will try and sit in the throne. But there is always because when you connect into the knight itself, you are psychically connecting to it, neurologically. So that way you feel the knight.
Pacific Rim.
Yeah. The problem is that these machines are tens of thousands of years old. And because you have been psychically linked to it, a small remnant of your mind has actually been left behind in the knight. So when a new pilot actually comes about and they sit in the throne, they are actually left in that knight for 24 hours in the dark. And they have to bind with it and not go mad because you have tens of thousands of years of pilots.
Mm-hmm.
All of their small bits of their mind that have been left in the machine that are now in your own mind. Often, pilots will die from this. The success rate is very, very low. But if you do succeed, you have gone from having to, follow all these traditions and go through all this pompous stuff to now being the big dog. I have the big machine. I could do whatever the hell I want.
Nice.
Yeah. They have different weapons that they use. So obviously they have a chainsaw sword that they use.
Can I just show you this?
Yeah.
Look at the baby's ass.
Oh, that's a good booty.
Like, look at it. I don't know if I can get this in view, but it is really cute. There's a baby's butt right there. Look at that tush. Look at that little tush.
May I go?
Not safe for work, guys.
So they have giant chainsaw swords. They have a gauntlet that is full of lightning, essentially. They will just pick people up and just deafen them with warhounds or like a war horn, essentially. They have very big guns like flamers and things like that. Some of the bigger knights actually have a harpoon that they will literally just harpoon their enemy and bring them towards them.
Dude.
And there is a few different combinations of these knights, but you also have the little mini knights, and these are lesser members of those. Yeah.
This lobotomized baby has a mechanical spine.
Yeah.
And essentially that mechanical spine is connecting their wings.
Yep.
This is more morbid than I thought. I feel kind of bad now.
Don't. Yeah, so you have those big knights, but you also have little mini knights called armigers. These are piloted typically by they're squires to the knights, run by smaller minor houses that are associated with the Bajor house. They will fight alongside, and sometimes they're directly connected to the main knight, so that way they can all work in unison. And it does put a pretty heavy burden on the mind of the pilot in order to do this. Yeah. There is the opposite to the Imperial Knights. There is the Chaos Knights, and these are ones that have fallen to chaos from one way or the other. Some of them at the very beginning, they fell at the same time as the other Space Marines. At the very beginning of that rebellion and the heresy, a psychic blast went out to all the to the knights, and some of them were immediately driven mad.
So you're talking about the people in the knights, or the people in the mech suits, right?
Yeah. Some
okay.
were corrupted by themselves, were corrupted. Others, the machine spirit, so the knight itself was corrupted, and the knight and the pilot himself couldn't get out. He was just left in there, slowly screaming as he was driven mad by his own knight. Others willingly went along.
Let me just confirm. So knight is different from pilot.
Yes.
Knight is the actual mechanical thing.
Yeah.
Pilot is the thing that... So if you have a chaos knight, can you have a chaos pilot? Or does do they always come together?
They always come together.
Okay.
The Chaos Knights are obviously a little bit more metal. There is one... You have houses, but you also have free blades. So these are ones that have just kind of gone off and done their own thing, like a hedge knight or a Ronin samurai. They don't follow any particular house. On the chaos side, there is one that it only has melee weapons. And when there is enough blood on the battlefield of a specific area, it will literally rise up from the blood in the ground in order to then cause more carnage. Yeah, baby.
No.
This one has a skull.
This one has a skull. Oh my God. Check this one out. The other one was a lobotomized baby. This is just a skull.
Yep.
It's sickening. I hope it's not a baby.
Yeah, so some hosts went renegades. Some are just like free blades that just do whatever they want and follow particular gods. But they do various different things.
And those are all the knights.
And those are the knights.
So if I was to get the Christmas box of the knights, there's only 3 of them because they're so strong? Is that the reason, or?
There is 5. So
5,
you get the 1 big knight, and you get 4 of the little mini knights.
How big are the mini knights?
4.5 inches tall. About that
How big is a big knight?
A little bit bigger than that. So like
I should
6
have
to
gotten
7.
the knights. Would have been easier to build. You did not see that? I did not draw blood.
Good.
We're good.
We're good. Yeah, that box, if you bought 2 of those boxes, you would have a complete knight army. Or a complete Chaos Knight army, because all it takes to make a Chaos Knight is just paint it like Chaos.
So GW doesn't sell you a new box that says Chaos?
They do have specific Chaos ones, and recently they just released the Chaos Knights Codex, and that came with a new knight set that was called the Knight Abominant that is its own knight on the Chaos side. They also released new armigers, so little mini knights that are specific to Chaos as well. So you can do either one, but the Christmas box is just the Imperial Knights, so you don't get, but you can just add spiky bits, essentially.
Okay. I now have the nuns with guns.
You now have the nuns with guns. Yeah.
All right.
On top of the knights, there are a thing called Titans, and these are just bigger knights. These go all the way. If a knight is typically running about like 9 meters to 10 meters tall, Titans are 20 to 50 to 60 meters tall. They are walking skyscrapers.
Is that what you were trying to buy on Forge World?
No.
No, but like, are those the ones sitting on
Yes.
Forge World? Yeah, there we go.
Those you don't really typically run because the smallest one, called the Warhound Titan, is 2,000 points itself.
Good. So you mean I could have just gotten that and played the army?
You could have. And people jokingly do that at tournaments. They never win. But it's funny as hell when you go walk up to a table and you do a deployment, they just drop a giant mech and say, I'm done deploying. They will lose because the game isn't built to play with that.
Yeah.
But they go up to like 5,500 points for one model. And the largest one is basically a cathedral.
So what's the point of it?
Big dick energy.
Yeah, I was going to say it. BDB!
That is basically all that the Titans are. There's some details in there. They're pretty cool, but we'll go to the next.
Okay, because I'm done this now, so people can watch me put it away.
We go for the next one.
All right. My Retributor squad is done.
Let me see if you can keep the... Oh, that's actually...
Oh, wait.
Yeah, bring them just to the edge of this.
All right, my Retributor squad is done. Bam. All right, let's pack the rest of this up. So I have a lot of extra electric pieces, eh?
Yeah, that's very typical.
I kind of cut that out. Now it's there.
That's fine. Just put it in the box.
Okay.
Or put it in the combat patrol box. I also have a lot of like spare bits. This is normal. It's called bits. You could just basically keep them around and use them for other projects. It's a normal part of the hobby.
All right, I guess I'm going to be... this is actually a lot faster than I thought to build them.
Yeah, once you get a groove, it's pretty quick.
I mean, I'm listening to you rant. This is the best way you've found to have your wife sit next to you and listen to all the stuff that you...
Ouch.
I mean, you can't get me to sit still for too long. This is hard enough as it is. All right, what do we got next, Nick? I'm just going to open up another box here.
Yeah. All right,
Bam.
Up next, we have the Aeldari. There are 3 sub-fact...
Any picture?
Oh, yeah. Give me a second. There are kind of 3-4 factions that are around the Aeldari. So you have different versions of them. Their own unique armies. And
they're elves.
So these are the space elves.
Nice. Wicked.
Now, the Aeldari are roughly about 65 million years old. That is how long this civilization has existed. They were built by a race that once existed called the Old Ones as a means to fight against the Necrons of the Votann. They are very in tune with the warp.
It smells so good. Sorry.
They're very in tune with the warp and are very psychically in tune. So they can use psychic powers like it's no one's business.
Do I have to follow this, or can I just build the mech? Or the tank?
You can build the mech or the tank.
It's okay. I'll follow this. I won't be chaos. I'm a bit OCD, so it'll bother me.
Sonam, you're not going to be chaos because you are sisters.
I'm OCD. I need to follow the rules.
Well, you fit with the sisters more now. Fit with the order.
Oh, man. I am not chaos. If you got me a chaos box, I'd build from the backwards. I'd build from like back to front, not front to back. All right. I'll put this on the side just because we don't have room for it here.
No. So the Aeldari, they're very cyclically attuned, and they were built specifically as psychic warriors to fight against the Necrons in a war called the War in Heaven. This War in Heaven actually spawned 3 of the Chaos Gods because it just had turned up the warp so much that it caused these gods to maybe be born here. Who knows what the actual origins are. They are, because like they're like elves, their minds are very different to the way that we think. They may tell you they are lying, and you think that they're actually lying, but they're actually telling you the truth.
Apparently I didn't read this, as it says, please read this first. It actually gives you a little
idea of which ones are which.
Idea of which one is what.
Yeah.
So for all you out there, you may want to read the instructions first.
Always read the instructions first.
I'm listening to you. All right, go.
They, instead of traveling through the warp, they actually have something called the Webway, which is opened by Webway portals that enable them to travel between planets as if without having to use spaceships. They can just walk through the portal, go into the Webway, and come out at anywhere else where there is another Webway gate and Webway portal. There is cities and labyrinthine pathways all throughout the Webway. So a normal human attempting to try and navigate the Webway will just get absolutely lost. Like, our minds are incapable of understanding it. The Aeldari are very alien comparatively to us for that reason. They live incredibly long lives and were effectively immortal, because what would happen is that when they died, their soul would go off into the warp, and their families or anywhere, they'd be able to pluck that soul back out from the warp and put it into a new baby body or a new body. Or they'd be able to...
So were they immortal that way, or were they were their bodies immortal?
They were really long lived, so they would live centuries and thousands of years normally. But when they died, they'd be able to be reincarnated.
This reminds me of Legolas.
Yeah, they're elves. Like, it's pretty that way. So they would also be completely reincarnated with their own memories.
Mm-hmm.
Now, over the 60 million years, they were completely superior to everyone. Humanity kind of came up and they just kind of let humanity do what it did. Like, they didn't really mess around with one another as much as we know. But they started to get bored. See, the Aeldari feel sensations and emotions much stronger than a human does. They want to feel things. So when they feel grief, they feel it 10 times more than we do. When they feel pleasure, they feel it 10 times more than we do.
Oh, I'm building the main one. It's like, this is pretty cool.
That is the...
I think so.
I don't know what the name of the...
Canonus? Yeah, I think that's the main one, right?
Yep. That is a character.
Check out the back.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They... Of course, because they have those sensations, they start getting bored. So they seek out ways to make that sensation, stronger. It's like when you had a good steak, you don't find normal steak good anymore. So you try and find the better steak, and you want to eat that steak more.
There's so many other references you can use for this.
What would you use for that?
I'm not going there. We're keeping this PG-13.
Are you thinking porn? Because that's one way of saying it.
I mean, no. Because
okay,
no.
Sonam, this is not ending up PG-13, I'm telling you. This is not going to a place that's PG-13. So, but yes, it's like you have so much porn, and maybe you start off with watching Missionary, but...
Are you really doing this right now?
Yes.
Nick, come on.
Because this is what happened, because they would have sex, and they got bored with
It's
just
also like
normal
drugs
sex.
and alcohol, right?
And
Same thing.
They were looking for drugs. They were looking for, eventually they wanted stronger drugs.
Yeah,
they
once you start heroin, nothing else is good after that.
They liked music, but they wanted louder music. So they get into like their ears are bleeding music. They're going into orgies, better drugs. Eventually they would have decadent shows with torture and heavy sexual abuse.
That's like The Purge.
Because to watch it was this overwhelming sensation. And for those that were participating and may have been murdered, they're reincarnated and they have felt that sensation that they will never be able to feel again in their life, potentially.
Oh, shit. So that actually, that makes it worse.
Yeah.
That's
so
like, honestly, I don't know if I want to live in that society. No, so, it's a really sad way to live if you think about it.
They became, because they were at the height of their civilization. And this is the way civilizations go. There's a cycle that typically goes up.
Well, do you think we're there as humans? I feel like we're getting there.
Maybe.
I'm playing Warhammer for fun.
Yeah. There was a quote I saw. It's actually related to Red Rising. Civilizations wear heavy wooden shoes on the way up the stairs, but fuzzy slippers on the way down. The idea that when you are going to the prime of a civilization, you are more hardened and good. But as you're coming back down and coming from grace, it's because of decadence. Remember Red Rising?
Yeah.
The pixies.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not quite like the Iron Golds.
Yep.
Most people won't get this. You should read Red Rising.
Yeah, no, if anyone's into sci-fi, last few books are coming out, but...
it's really good.
It's amazing. And this is new for me to say, but I like sci-fi, actually. I really enjoy it,
Red Rising's really good.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they started following into this degeneracy and like... it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And there was pockets in the webway where you had cults that were specifically around that, making new sensations. And of course, because the Eldar feel more sensation, this sensation goes and this emotion fuels into the warp. The warp starts kind of getting more and more muddied. It causes storms and causes different currents. Two specific parts of the Aeldari at the civilization time left because they're just like, nah, fuck this, I'm out. You have the Exodites that basically are like elf Amish in space, except they have dinosaurs. They just completely said, screw everything that we had. We are going back to basic. We want to be rustic. And they just went off to the edges of the galaxy. Another one was called the Craftworlds. They left on these huge generational ships that are the sizes of moons and just started floating around the outside because they just wanted to get away from it. It may have also been that because the Aeldari have people called farseers that can see into the future and have prophecies, they were able to see that something bad was going to happen if they stayed in their core worlds of their civilization. Another group went completely in the webway, and like I said, they just made their own cults around the worst and most sick, malicious, sadistic desires that they could come up with. All of this emotion fueled and just made the warp worse. For humanity, this is when the Age of Strife is, which had isolated every single world away from one another. So almost every civilization was completely shut down at this time because they just couldn't travel. They couldn't go anywhere. After thousands of years of all of this emotion funneling directly into the warp, it caused a rupture in the warp. Where the Aeldari had their home worlds were completely collapsed and just were torn open a hole in space called the Eye of Terror. And it birthed a new god called Slaanesh.
Wait, we talked about Slaanesh.
Yes, Slaanesh is the chaos god of sensation.
Ah, okay.
So the joke is they murder fucked a god into existence.
Cool.
When Slaanesh was born, though, they literally, they just destroyed all of the gods that existed for the Aeldari before because they had their own pantheon of gods. Only a few survived. Isha, Cain, and Sekarak. Him. Slaanesh just absorbed all of them. Every single Aeldari that was in that area Slaanesh just sucked them up and absorbed all of their souls to become stronger. And every single Eldar that was left, because 90 to 95% of their entire civilization was just gone. The ones that were left, Slaanesh has a kind of like little finger on them. So if they die, when their souls go to the warp, they immediately go to Slaanesh. So Slaanesh is the great enemy of the Eldar now. Now, this is where the different factions for the Eldar come in. The Craftworlds are their ones. Are
these sub-factions, or are these like the real, are they part of the 15 factions we're talking to today?
Yes, they are.
In terms of, it's part of the 15?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, 30 or however 30. Many there are. So Craftworlds are a type of army that you could play on the tabletop. They're the ones that went off in their big generational ships. In order to stave off Slaanesh, what happens is that they have a soul gem on them at all times. So when they die, they put their soul into the soul gem so that way it can be returned to the craft world and put into something called an infinity circuit.
Okay.
They have their mechs are like, they use mechs and different things like that, and use Wraithbone, which is the essence of the warp made into material form that makes it stronger and psychically bound. But their mechs they have big mechs essentially that are piloted by ghosts, which is why they're called wraiths. But they seek to focus their minds solely on the task of what they're doing. So that way they don't want to feed themselves into that corruption and obsession of sensation. So when they follow the path of the warrior, they focus entirely on that. They're more of like an anime vibe because they have like some of their pilots are piloted by a brother and their dead sister in the big mech thing. The Eldar, especially the Craftworlds, when they are fighting, they are fast and very nimble, but because they're very thin and not very well armored. When they do get hit, they can die pretty easily, but they're very fast.
Check that out.
Oh, yeah.
That's pretty cool, eh?
Yeah, she's really dope.
Yeah.
So they're very fast. They can move at rapid speed, and like they shoot shurikens out of guns, essentially.
What's that?
The Japanese, like the weeb thing, like the little blades that you throw throwing stars?
I don't know weeb stuff. Like that is no, come on. Do you really think I know weeb?
Yeah, they're very much like that. They follow the blade. They only study the blade. They only do that kind of thing. A quote, "Trust not in their appearance, for the Eldar are as utterly alien to good, honest men as the vile Tyranids and the savage Orkz. They are capricious and fickle, attacking without cause or warning. There is no understanding them, for there is nothing to understand. They are a random force in the universe." So they're completely different to our minds. Next up, in the different factions, we actually have Harlequins.
What? Show me a picture.
Yeah, I'll show you the picture of them. The Harlequins are clowns.
Yeah, nope, exactly what I thought. It reminds me of what's her name? Joker.
Harlequin.
Yeah, literally.
So the Harlequins are actors and playwrights. They see everything as a stage, and they follow the Eldar laughing god Sakarak. There is no exact pronunciation of this because it's Kakarak or something. Now, this is from a civilization that was doing all that debauchery, and think of what they think is funny. It's not what we think is funny.
Not at all.
The Harlequins, when Slaanesh was born, Sekarak kind of whisked his Harlequins away into the webway, and they actually live mostly in the webway, and they will travel from planet to planet to perform their dances and plays. But their performances are typically battles. They are mostly seeking to fight chaos at any moment. So say you're a human planet and demons have started to exist, there might be these clowns that just start showing up, killing the demons and disappearing. And you're just like, okay, that was interesting. They are fast. They are fast and nimble. They wear masks and whip through the battlefield with a grace and pizzazz. They wear masks to show their role. And like I said, their performances. So one of their performances might be they are acting out the war in heaven as a battle, as they're fighting.
Fighting other people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sekarak regularly plays tricks and pranks on Slaanesh to get the souls of Harlequins back. Like he'll literally go and just like play rock, paper, scissors for souls. Or like play Yu-Gi-Oh!
But why would Slaanesh fall for that? If you say because reasons, I'm walking out of here.
I don't 100% know, actually, when it comes to Sekarak, because I don't know the lore fully with them because they're very weird. Yeah. They fight chaos, and as a quote, all theaters are theaters of war. War must needs be theatrical. Their war gear is very interesting, though, because they have very different things. So they have masks that will show exactly who they are, and these can cause different effects. So one of the masks is the Mask of Fear that will actually and project a terrifying image into the victim's mind of their worst nightmares. They have something called, where is it? Harlequin's Kiss. It's horrifically lethal. A sharpened tube attached to the forearm. The kiss can be punctured through an enemy's armor and flesh. High tensile monofilament wire contained within the weapon then uncoils, reducing the target's insides to a gory soup within the space of a single heartbeat. So they just poke a needle in you.
Why is everything so violent in 40k?
Because it's 40k. It's over the top. It is over the top ultra violence. Yeah, so they have very different.
Boss Lady's done. Check it out.
Cannon ass.
Check it out.
Whoop, whoop.
Boss Lady's. I don't know how you guys paint this stuff, man.
Very carefully.
Enjoy watching me try this.
Now, the last of the Aeldari factions that we're going to talk about are the Drukhari. These are your edgy boys. So the Drukhari, quote, "We are the lords of despair, masters of terror. Dread and agony are our meat and wine, and they are plentiful indeed." So the Drukhari are the Eldars that ran into the webway. And they're the ones that were the worst of the worst when it came to their debauchery. They were the ones with the clubs specifically, so that way people could like flay themselves and have all these sensations. Slaanesh, of course, still has a little finger touch on them. So if they die, they will go to Slaanesh. But they found...
Wait, this is another faction?
This is another faction. This is the Drukhari.
Picture?
Yes.
You keep forgetting, don't you?
I do.
I need to see them just so I can kind of think about them.
That's Drukhari.
All right, show me the elves again, just so I can kind of go back and forth.
Yeah, so the second one there is the Craftworlds.
Okay.
The next one are the Harlequins, and the last one are Yinkane, which is a part of the Craftworlds. But the one on the far left are the Drukhari.
These are all within the Space Elves category.
Yes.
And they're each one a different faction.
Yes.
Okay. Damn, I just got more confused.
So the Drukhari, they found that they could elongate their lives and actually keep Slaanesh from taking their souls by doing things that Slaanesh likes. So they found that the more that they tortured, the more that they caused agony and suffering, the more that they could fuel themselves and keep themselves young and keep themselves from going to Slaanesh. So their main city that they live in, called Kamara, became a port where they could then go out into the real space and raid planets and bring back slaves to then fight in fighting pits that could then be watched by all the Drukhari that could gain from the agony of those participating in it. Or they could be tortured continuously in order to gain that agony and fuel themselves to become better. They could then take a family and make you watch as they do horrible things that are bad to your family and then do the same thing to you. It keeps them alive and keeps them satiated. They are masters in fleshcraft. So when they would torture you for decades, what they would do is once they were bored and they found that they had wringed every bit of agony and pain out of you that they could, they would then give you to a fleshcrafter who would then splay your skin out and make you into a couch or a lamp that is still alive and still feeling. So you are a moaning couch that will live forever.
That's disgusting.
It is
Hold
better.
that for me, please. Thank you.
It is better to die to any other faction than it is to be taken by the Drukhari.
Okay, good to know.
So these are just outright the most evil faction. Because with 40k, you go from dark black to mildly gray. You don't have any more
who's
factions.
mildly gray?
Kind of Space Marines.
Okay,
depending on which
they're like the
chapter.
good guys, right?
Kind of. They're still
the bestest of
the
my
bestest.
good guys.
The Tau are also pretty on the gray
You're
side.
gonna say that just because you own the Tau.
Technically, the least evil would be Orkz as well.
Are you serious?
I'll get there.
Okay. Where are we?
So that was the Drukhari.
All right.
So on the battlefield, they do the same thing. They have a very like pirate feel to them. They have skiffs that they'll like run around on the battlefield with, and they'll like jump out and fight and then jump back on. They'll move around at warp speed and just like kill you before they even can be touched. Their blades are so sharp that they can like cut you without getting a bit of blood on it. If any blood were to get on them, it would be a dishonor, and then they would be thrown into the fighting pits to be then used for agony. The Drukhari are something. A lot of their stuff is very spiky and looks very, very edgy. Mm-hmm. And they're not good people.
I mean, is anyone good people in 40k?
They're the worst. They are 100% the worst.
So they're the most evil.
They are the most evil.
Good to know. So you mean I could have picked those guys? Haunted your dreams.
Maybe. All right. Next up, we are actually going into the chaos.
Dun dun dun.
Dun, dun, dun. So I'm going to talk about the forces of chaos.
All right.
These are your demons. So you have the four main chaos gods. So if you go here, we have Tzeentch, we have Nurgle, we have Slaanesh, and we have Khorne.
Okay.
So to start off, Khorne is the rage and battlefield one. That is your classic quote, blood for the blood god, skulls for the skull throne. He is honor in battle and wanting to just fight. He doesn't care about anything else. If, say, for example, they like chaos, like the bloodletters were to go onto a planet, fight around, and you were fighting very well against them, Khorne would just be like, yeah, you fight well. Join me. Like, if you were to defend yourself very well, he'd be like, yeah, you've been fighting very well, and would corrupt you and just be like, you want to fight more. You want to fight better. I can give you the strength.
Sounds like a kid learning how to do drugs.
Pretty much.
You need this. You want this.
That's
peer
how
pressure.
But that's how chaos corrupts, is it just kind of gives you that little hint. It's like, here's some power.
So don't do drugs, kids. Not good for you. Ruins your brain.
For Khorne, there is no peace. There is only time wasted between battles.
Okay.
There are Space Marines that are specifically associated with each one. For Khorne, it is the World Eaters. These are draped in red with just skulls all over them, and they have run into battle with two like chainsaw axes, essentially. And they're just rage-fueled monsters.
Wait, you said these are types of Chaos Marines?
Yes.
Okay.
They're specifically associated with the different chaos gods.
Okay, good to know.
Next up, we have Nurgle.
Do you know what I hate?
What do you hate?
About this?
Oh, the numbers.
Fuck the numbers. Like half this time, I'm sitting here just trying to figure this shit out. I can't find 90 for the life of me.
Oh my god, Sonam.
What?
She has a robot leg.
Yeah, I know.
I didn't notice
She's
that.
still drying. Be careful.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know she had a robot like that. It's dope.
It's like it's pretty cool. So she's my most powerful being right now, eh?
She's your character, yes.
And I'm getting a better character, I think, with the Christmas box.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so then she would be my general to the better character.
Yeah, she'd be like a lieutenant.
Okay.
Or lieutenant.
You are 100% going to have to help me build the big box if we're going to play a 2,000 point army game.
We'll need we'll have to do 1,500 points. We don't have enough for 2,000 with just these 3 boxes.
We're going to do 1,500 points.
Yes.
Because I don't know if I can spend any more money.
We're going to start at 500 and go up.
Is that a kill team?
No, that's just a combat patrol game.
What's kill team? Okay, I'm good digressing. I'm sorry.
This is digressing.
I will ask you later. Or if anyone can tell me in the comments what is kill team, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, in the comments. Let Sonam know what kill team is. Give her an idea and different units that she could probably use.
I just asked that, dear.
I'm just making sure it's very clear. All right. Digressing. Nurgle. So Nurgle is rot and decay. All things will die, and it is best just to accept it. His good aspect is acceptance of death and just understanding that you are perfect the way you are. Have you been sitting on your couch with Dorito dust all over you, watching TV for the last 3 days with like day old takeout on the coffee table in front of you?
Baby. Yeah.
Nurgle loves you for that. He loves you, and that is what you are good the way you are. So he is stagnation. He is disease and maggots and viruses that will destroy you.
Gross.
Yeah, he is a stinky boy.
Ugh, yuck. Did you say he's a stinky boy?
He's a stinky boy. His followers are blighted. The main troop that they usually use are poxwalkers. They are zombies that are just filled with pus and bubis and all this gross stuff.
You look very gross as you're saying it too.
But the thing is that the followers of Nurgle fully love him because he is Grandpa Nurgle. Nurgle gives his gifts to you, his gifts of disease, but frees you from the pain of feeling those diseases and accepting them.
Ugh.
If you are full gremlin mode, Nurgle completely loves you. Quote, Bubis, phlegm, blood and guts, boils, boogies, rotten pus, blisters, fevers, weeping sores, from your wounds that festers pores. He is gross. And the Space Marines that are associated with him are the Death Guard. These are the Stinky Poo Poo Boys.
You just say the Stinky Poo Poo Boys?
Yes. They are big, tanky Space Marines that are very, very slow, but they don't care because as they go into battle and everything, things are just like rotting from the diseases that they pour out from them. And they don't need to necessarily fight. They just need to stand there and let their stink just wipe the enemy away.
That's really gross.
That is Nurgle.
That's its own faction too?
So they're Chaos Gods. They are one codex, but you can run each all together if you want to. Okay. They have demons associated with each one.
Yeah.
But like things like Demon Princes can be for Chaos Undivided. You can run some like Slanesh with Nurgle. You can do all these kind of mixed bag with them. And they're the Eldritch Horrors. Next up, we have Tzeentch, the God of Change. All things will change. There are schemes. There is hope that things can change. If you are someone that's working at McDonald's and you really want to become a manager, you have that hope that you will become a manager. And you are now scheming. You are trying to figure out, how can I get rid of my current manager? Can I give them an infraction? Can I talk to the one that's like my boss's boss, the regional manager, and try and get him fired so that way I can take his place? Tzeentch loves that you are doing this, and he is helping you. He is giving you the power that you need in order to get rid of your manager and become the manager of McDonald's.
I love your McDonald's analogy.
So he is most associated with wizards and psychic powers. Ooh. So where Khorne absolutely hates psykers because they're weird and strange and he doesn't know what to do. He just wants to fight. Tzeentch loves wizards because they can change and manipulate the world around them. His creatures are typically like birds for some reason. There's a lot of birds.
Yeah.
But they change, and they like you'll see like models are warped around things. And it's all about power and changing. Do not ask which creature screams in the night. Do not question who waits for you in the shadow. It is my cry that wakes you in the night, and my body that crouches in the shadow. I am Zeech, and you are the puppet that dances to my tune. The Chaos Space Marines associated with them are the Thousand Sons. They are filled with sorcerers and the regular rubric Marines, because of one of their main characters had decided to try and change a couple things. Ended up making all of the regular Marines dust. So they are automatons controlled by the sorcerers. And the demons associated with them are bird-like, and they will change things and be weird. Final up is Slaanesh, which is the god of sensation.
I've heard a lot of Slaanesh today.
Yep. Sensation from pleasure, from pain. If you like your music loud, sticking hooks through your skin while enjoying the best wine, Slaanesh is for you.
It just sounds like this particular type of BDSM.
Yep. But again, it's not just that. It is the overwhelming sensation of love, of pleasure, all of those things, but just turned up to 11. Embrace your hunger, your lust, your desire. The universe is ours for the taking. Emperor's Children are the Chaos Space Marines associated with Slaanesh. They are like some of the models that you'll see of them actually look like rockers. So they have like sonic blast weapons that will deafen you like from overwhelming sound. What was some other things? Yeah, they just, but the thing is they're called Emperor's Children, and their battle cry is for the Emperor because they are trolls and they want to confuse because confusion is a sensation. Slaanesh's
super weird.
Slaanesh's demons are also, there's a lot of purple. There's a lot of like crab claws and like androgyny as well, because some of the demons like they have a boob and they also have a peck. They are both male and they are both female.
You said they have a boob and a peck?
Yes. Literally, the models actually have a boob and a peck.
You need to show me a picture of this eventually.
They may or may not be female. They may or be male. They may be both.
Yep.
Slaanesh just accepts all of it.
They are just them. It's
mostly associated with sex. And a lot of the models end up like that. So when you have custom-made models, there's a lot of tits and a lot of not safe for work stuff. Yeah, that is the Chaos Gods, each individual one, and how they kind of deal with the world around them. All right, we're getting there. We're almost there.
How many you got left, Nick?
These are Votann, Tau, Necrons, Tyranids, Genestealer cults, and Orkz. We're into the Xenos territory. All right.
What do you mean these territories?
So it's like you have the Imperium, you have Chaos, and then you have Xenos.
These are overarching categories? Or
they're overarching categories. All right. League of Votann, Rock and Stone. These are space dwarves.
Oh.
They were just released. So originally.
Oh, how big are they?
The models are like this big.
Yeah, screw that.
They're tiny. They have a very. They have just recently been released. So the Votann, the space dwarves, were originally in 40k called the Squats. But they were removed from it because the designers didn't like how they fit in, because they were a little bit silly. They had like a land train, like literally a model that was a train that would be used onto the tabletop. And they didn't feel like they were doing the idea of space dwarves justice. So they removed the model line and didn't touch the Squats for over 20 years.
Oh, so they just got reintroduced?
They just got reintroduced. Literally 2 months ago, they were released.
Do they have a box or no? Christmas box?
They don't have a Christmas box because they just got released. So they had their launch box.
Yeah.
And they just got the rest of their line now.
Cool.
The Leagues of Votann is what they're now called. And instead of just being regular dwarves, their history is kind of similar to what they were before. They were humans that had colonized the galactic center. So the big massive like stars at the center of the Milky Way. And because of this, the gravity forces were quite significant, and the planets were a little bit more mineral rich, but less likely to have life sustained on them. So they would tunnel underground to gain their minerals and lived mostly underground. So they became more and more squat.
They sound like Gimli.
They're dwarves.
Yeah.
But they became shorter and shorter and more stout. Instead now, which they were just that before, now they are vat-grown clones. So each, they're called kin. They are vat-grown clones. So there's enough genetic difference between each kin, which is what they're called, that they have their own unique personalities and unique genotypes. So you can have a variety of looks to them without it being like they're just all the same. Mm-hmm. And because they have their own unique personality, they want to like go out and forge their own destiny most of the time.
Makes sense.
Yeah. The thing is, though, so they were just reintroduced. And remember that the Imperium doesn't like robots and AI, and they're looking for STCs. Because STCs have knowledge that they want to gain.
STCs are?
Standard template constructs.
Okay.
So they build everything and have all the knowledge of the dark age of technology.
Okay.
The Leagues of Votann they're called Leagues of Votann because they're leagues around a thing called the Votann, which are sentient STCs. They are AI that give them knowledge and can build things for them. And the kin venerate the Votann. They want to keep them safe and make sure that they gain knowledge from them. They will ask them questions and query them. The reason why they're now appearing again is because they went completely into hiding. But the Votann are tens of thousands of years old.
Dwarves?
No, the STCs, the AI.
Okay.
And it's almost like your parents' computer when they've left like 10,000 tabs open on their Chrome. Everything's a little bit slower.
Totally guilty of this.
The memory's leaking and it's just getting worse and worse and worse.
That's it's just parents? Because I'm totally guilty of this.
It's just like they're running out of RAM. So now the Votann are becoming a little bit more erratic. They're becoming a little bit weary. And to get a question that would normally take like 2 seconds before is now taking weeks to years to get an answer from the Votann. So now they're out in the galaxy again, trying to find materials that they can then take back to the Votann and make them better, essentially. On top of this, they also have something called Ironkin. Ironkin are just robots. They are a full AI that are equal rights to a normal kin. Mm-hmm. So one thought is that the reason why the men of iron rebelled against humanity is because we treated them like we would treat slaves. Versus the kin and the iron kin are treated completely equal as if they were kin themselves. So they don't leave them behind.
Kin of who?
They're just called kin.
I keep hitting the microphone with my with this shenanigans.
So you have high technology that has been held back from the Adepteus Mechanicus, and you have robots.
Okay.
So the Imperium does not like them. And because of this, they're also a lot more secretive. They don't want to let anyone know what's going on. They don't trust anyone that isn't kin, that isn't of their own. They have each a sub-faction called kinholds that are different kind of their own little sub-factions, like the Orders Militant of the Sisters of Battle. Or the chapters of the Space Marines. They have different kinholds that can hold multiple Votanns and hold different ways. So that way they can build weapons. Their technology is also significantly stronger. And they also have a little bit of a Norse vibe. So like their psychers that actually commune with the Votann are called Grimnirs. And they have a lot of Norse names in their characters as well. You'll notice a lot of like the heraldry on them looks very Norse as well. Most importantly, though, they're just assholes. Like you might some people, when Votann were coming out, they're like, oh, they're good guys. Like, they're too good. They're too noble bright. They're not grimdark enough for the setting. No, these are asshole dwarves that have...
Come on, aren't the dwarves never... Like, which dwarves aren't assholes?
Yeah, like, if you are living on a planet, they have giant ships that can encapsulate your planet and just rip it down to base minerals, and they don't care that you're living on that planet.
Nice.
One of the sub-factions are basically ultra-capitalists. And it's like, yeah, they're super noble bright. No, they're not. They are assholes.
So I beg you don't like them.
No, I love them. They're great. They're asshole dwarves. It's fantastic. Quote, there are 3 things that matter in this galaxy: family, duty, hearth. Every kin lives by this code, and anyone who wants to, who gets in the way, well, they can die by it just as easily.
Okay, I need to show you something.
Yeah? Oh, yep.
Skulls.
Nice.
Isn't that cool?
That's really cool.
This one is walking around with like a little cabinet full of skulls. Isn't that wicked?
That's really cool.
So I finished the first 2. Let's see. Battle Sisters. I don't know if there's a C, but we're getting there. 26 miniatures in this thing. Man.
Yeah.
All right.
That's the Leagues of Votann. Next up, we have the Tau.
Pew, 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 pew.
These are your mech robots.
All right, let's see it.
Okay, hold up.
All right.
So this is a Riptide battle suit.
Oh,
it's a pretty
I
big
got this
one.
for you for Christmas one year.
Yes, you did.
Actually, my aunt did.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the Tau are a very young race in comparison to everything else. Where like
keep that right here.
Yeah, keep it somewhere in there. Where the Eldar and the Necrons are 60 million years old. Orkz are the same way. Humanity's been around for 40,000 years. And Chaos has been around for however long. Tau have only been around for about 6,000 years or so. They when 6,000 years ago, the Mechanicus kind of showed up to their planet on an expeditionary force, took a look at the planet, and they saw just, normal Xenos on a planet, agrarian life. Maybe they had some farming. And they saw that there was like 4 sub-factions or different types of these aliens that all living on this planet. And they said, okay, that's fine. We'll come back and purge this later. So they went off, put it into the records that this planet was to be purged because it had Xenos. But then a warp storm cut this planet off entirely. And after the warp storm cleared and the Imperium went to take a look again to try and purge them, is like, holy shit, they have railguns and they have ships. What happened?
And that's your Tau.
That's my Tau. So within 1,000 years, they went from just agrarian life to completely having technology that is actually vastly superior to what the Imperium can regularly make.
Are these people, are they people or are they robots?
They are people. So they're aliens, though.
Okay.
They're blue-skinned. They have hoofs like goats. They, instead of having a nose, they have slits in their faces.
Interesting. Voldemort.
Actually, yeah. That's
Voldemort,
fine.
right?
The males have a single slit. The females have a Y look.
Okay.
Now, those 4 factions that existed before actually became the 4 castes of the Tau. There is the earth, water, fire, and air caste. But the reason why they were able to advance so quickly was that these castes were once fighting one another when they were in the plains. But a 5th caste showed up called the Ethereals. And they unified each of the castes and said, listen, let's not fight. Let us work together and work together for the greater good, which became the unifying mantra of the entire Tau. They don't try to infight. They don't look to just destroy everything that comes near them. They actually look to say, your strengths can be our strengths.
So they have brains. They have brains.
They have brains. They seek to find ways to bring people in.
Wait, I'm sorry.
They seek to bring people in through diplomacy, if possible. So each of the castes have their own unique way of working. The main military side is the Firecast. That is, everything on the tabletop is Firecast. So Riptide Battlesuit, piloted by a Firecast unit. The Watercast are diplomats. They'll go to the different worlds and they have very strong diplomacy skills, and they'll like chat with people and work on trade. The Aircast are pilots, and the Earthcast are engineers. So they actually build everything. And the Ethereals live above all, and they try and make sure that everything works together. Now, if they go to a human world and they try diplomacy, but diplomacy doesn't quite work, they send in the Firecast, and you will be brought to heel through battle. Like, even though they want to cooperate, they will not hesitate to use force.
Okay.
Over time, they have expanded slowly out. They don't use the warp for travel, technically yet. So they can't get too far. So they're a very, very small faction in comparison to the wider galaxy, to the wider Milky Way. Thoughts process. And as long as they were going along, they were finding different Xenos that they said, like, hey, join us. So one of those was the Kroot, which look kind of like chickens, like chicken walking people. They said, hey, join us. So, like, the Kroot were being invaded by Orkz, and the Tau came in. They helped the Kroot and helped the Kroot survive and brought them into the greater good. They had Vespids, which were kind of bug-like flyer people. They brought them into it. They traded with something called the Demiurge, which enabled them to have ion weapon technology. That was actually the Votann. So they actually worked with the Dwarves for a bit and gained some technology from them. They do always try diplomacy first, which is funny because they tried to do this with the Orkz. But the Orkz don't listen to diplomacy. They listen to fight.
Mm-hmm.
I want to fight. They sent... At one point, they were fighting alongside with the Drukhari. And the Drukhari said, like, hey, we want to do a cultural exchange. Can you send us some of your people and we'll let them know about our culture? I was like, okay, yeah. Like, the Tau, they're very naive. They're like, okay, yeah, we're going to send a welcoming party, like cultural exchange. They're going to learn more. And the next time that they found the Drukhari, they found a lot of creatures that happened to be very blue-hinted that moaned in Tau speak.
Aww.
And it's like, okay, those guys are evil. So that's kind of where Tau are. They are highly progressive. They're constantly looking to improve their technology, but they are naive to the horrors of the galaxy. And they are also a very caste system. If you are a fire warrior, you are born and bred for warrior. You do nothing else. If you're a earth caste, you only are an engineer. You do not do anything else in your life. Do you want to fight? Nope, you can't. You are an engineer. You will never do anything else in your life.
Indian parents would be happy.
I mean, caste system, Sonam. Caste
Doctor,
system.
lawyer, engineer.
But it is like the Indian caste system. The Brahmins all the way down to
I know. That's really
the
funny.
untouchables.
Yeah.
They don't like fighting in close quarter combats unlike everyone else in the galaxy. They usually fight from afar because that is the smarter thing to do. I don't want the thing that can rip me into shreds to touch me, so I'm just going to shoot it from across the way. But they have learned to kind of adapt to the changes in the galaxy. So they were finding that when they fought with the Imperium, they were running out of ammo when they were fighting against the tanks of the Imperial Guard. So they built a fist that could punch through the tank.
Nice.
They were finding when they were going to human worlds, they were hearing about, 100-meter tall walking robots. And they're just like, oh, it's just Imperial propaganda. And they're like, yeah, no, that's nothing. Until they actually fought the Imperium and the mountains started walking towards them. But they can, even though they are a small faction, they can hit back hard. And they've actually been expanding out further into different areas of the galaxy through their own misfortunes of trying to gain warp technology.
So why did you choose the Tau, Nick?
Big robot.
That's literally it, eh?
Big robot.
It's okay. What I've learned is people are choosing their factions based on what's cool to them.
Typically,
Whether it's story, whether it's cuteness, whether it's lobotomized babies, whether it's like just badassery, like, yeah.
always. That is the number one reason. Because as you can tell, you're going to spend a lot of time trying to build, trying to paint, and then trying to play. So
This is not my Christmas gift, just so you know. I expect a different one.
I know. You're going to spend a lot of time with it. So you might as well do something that you find fun and you find interesting.
Yeah.
So that is the Tau. There is one so with the Tau, they have different sub-factions. They're basically just little different solar systems. They're called sept worlds. There is one area called the Farsight Enclaves, led by the greatest general of the Tau, named Shazo Shavri? Something like this. But his name is Farsight, essentially.
All right. I'm going to take a little bit of a break and listen to you. Yep.
So Farsight, he actually was finding that the Ethereals, they kind of changed a little bit of the lore originally, that the Tau were a little bit nicer. But eventually they kind of changed the lore so that way the Ethereals are actually using pheromones to control everyone. But Farsight was on an expedition and his Ethereals died and he was released from this control and realized that it was all a lie. The greater good was a lie. So he went out with his own faction on the other side of a nebula and just started colonizing himself and making his own faction. The Tau normally don't live that long, and they actually don't have that bright of a soul in the warp, so they're not affected by chaos too much. But they don't live that long. They only live about 40 years. Farsight left the Tau Empire about 400 to 500 years ago, and he is still alive.
Why?
He found a blade called the... Oh my God, I don't know the name of the blade.
That's okay. If anyone does, they can let us know.
I feel so bad. I
know. This is like your army.
But this blade enables him to, when he kills something, he takes the life force of that opponent.
So he's sucking souls.
He is sucking souls. Yeah. He doesn't know this, though.
Does it have any bad consequences? Does it have any bad consequences, though?
So far, no.
There you go. Suck souls.
Yeah, he just is sucking souls and gaining extra life. And he is basically running a military totalitarian regime off in the area away from everyone else. But that is the Tau. So small faction, slowly growing, big robots. Next up, we have the Necrons. So the Necrons are your robo-skeleton Egyptian...
Stop shaking.
Sorry.
Yep. I've seen them. Aren't they the common villain to Space Marines?
So at the beginning of 9th edition, they were actually used as the opening box. So the Indominus box had new Space Marines and a line refresh for the Necrons.
Okay.
So they got brand new models, some brand new characters, and a few other fancy things. But they were kind of used as the initial villain of this new edition. Necrons are exactly that. They are robot skeletons with a very Egyptian theme. Originally, in the lore, they were just simply mindless robots that moved in sync in silence. And they were basically Terminators. They have stratagems originally that were called I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. So it was a lot of themes around that.
They're like legit. They're playing on words with Terminator.
They weren't just playing on words. They were straight up trying to steal ideas.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough.
Because their bodies are made of necrodermis, which is a liquid metal.
Yeah.
So if you were to shoot them with a bullet, the bullet would go in and it would just seal up.
Yeah.
You explode them and then they would just reform. But they were just this mindless walking robot army that just moved forward in silence. They had no lore. There was no background to them. And you had no idea what their motivations were. They would just appear on a planet that happened to have their tombs and you would just see them come out and destroy things. More recently, they have started to add more lore to them and flesh them out.
I see what you did there.
and give them some background. So the Necrons were originally flesh and bone creatures. They existed well before the time of the Aeldari. So they lived on a planet that was completely soaked in sunlight and radiation. So they lived their lives dying of cancer constantly. They had very short and brutal lifespans. And their leaders would focus more on the afterlife. So they would make tombs and put them to the dead, which is where you get your kind of Egyptian theme from, because they would make tombs to the dead leaders, like the pyramids, right?
Yeah, yeah.
While they started gaining some technology and traveling out in space, the cancer never left them. And they found the Old Ones, which were an ancient species that were so powerful that they could seed life wherever they want to.
Mm-hmm.
And they asked the Old Ones, hey, we're dying constantly. Please, can you help us and gain the immortality that you have? And the Old Ones just said, fuck off. And the Necrons didn't like that. They said, well, you're so powerful. We're powerful too. We're going to fight you and we're going to take that immortality for ourselves. And the Old Ones just clapped them hard. They sent them back to their cancer, radiation-stricken planets and left them there to die. But as the Necrons were slowly, or the Necron tier as they were called, they were not Necrons at this point, called Necron tier. They saw around their stars, they started seeing some floating, like amorphous creatures, kind of like gas clouds, that were siphoning off the power of their star. And they found a way to communicate with them. And these were the Votann. The Votann were star gods, and they gave them bodies, liquid metal bodies, so that way they could directly interact with the material world. The Votann, though, once they were given bodies, they realized that star juice and all of this, well, it wasn't as tasty as they thought it was. Having physical bodies, they realized that there was something else that was energy-based that was much more delicious. Souls.
Necrons eat souls?
No, the Votann.
Okay.
So the Votann had a particular person or a particular character named the Deceiver. And this, literally his name is the Deceiver.
Yeah.
And he went to the leading Necron tier character named Sazerac and said like, hey, I can give you the immortality that you seek. We will give you powerful bodies that will enable you to get your revenge against the Old Ones. And you will be able to fight them and win. And Sazerac, who is called the Silent King, said yes. And so he began to lead his people into these great furnaces called transference.
Are we talking about Necrons still, or are we talking about something else now?
Necrons, yes.
Okay, cool.
So he would lead all his people. And because they were always cancer-ridden, the lords and dynastic lords were actually watching as like the common folk were lined up to go into these furnaces to gain their immortality that were dying on the side of the road because they stopped making grain. They stopped making anything. They all wanted to go and gain their immortality. Mm-hmm. And there was this fear that they all had that, oh my God, I'm going to become like metal body. What about what's going to happen to me? And they would go through, and above these furnaces where they were gaining these powerful metal bodies, there was the Votann up ahead eating their souls as they were going through the transference. So the Necron tier got what they wanted. They got powerful, immortal bodies, but they lost their souls. And anyone that isn't like the higher ups lost their minds. They became mindless automaton that only follow the will of those that are above them. And so the Votann decided, okay, I'm going to fight the Old Ones now. We're going to use the Necrons, and you're going to get what you want, which is to fight back against the Old Ones. So the Old Ones created species to fight back against them, but were eventually defeated. They created the Eldar as powerful psychic beings in order to fight them, and they also created something called the Quarks, which I'll discuss a little bit afterwards, that were just constant fighting machines. The Old Ones lost, and the Votann gained dominion over the entire galaxy. But they were bored and they started infighting. At which point Sazerac, the Silent King, rebelled against the C'tan, and he, of all characters, Big E talked about not liking gods, like the Emperor talked about not liking gods or religion, but he eventually became a religion, whereas the Silent King didn't like the gods, so he ripped them into different pieces because you can't kill the C'tan. Instead, he made shards of them and used them to power his creations. So they fought back against the C'tan, ripped them to shreds, but then noticed the Eldars were becoming stronger, so they want to wait until the Eldar fell, so that way they could then take back their dominion of the galaxy and find a way to return their bodies to flesh and gain their souls back. So they all went to sleep.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening now, is that the Eldar have fallen and the Necrons, their tombs are starting to awaken. But they have some problems because they've been asleep for so long. It's like your computer has been on for too long and now they're just kind of crazy.
I lost a piece. Oh, there it is.
One character still believes he is flesh and blood.
Yeah. So
it's Nimrazor Zandrak. And he's like an old man with dementia who's just like, tally-ho, we shall fight against them. Why are they painting their skin green? Nonetheless, shall defeat those other dynasties. Ha ha ha. Let us fight. And he'll try and eat, but he's a robot. And he's jovial and all this kind of stuff, but he still thinks he's flesh and blood. There's another one that is just steal stuff. He's like Indiana Jones. He has his own museum and he just goes around the galaxy and steals shit to put in his museum. They've all gone just slightly crazy. But the thing is, the Necrons have weapons that deatomize you. They have weapons that can burn anything alive. They have scarabs that can go into your skin and control you or rip you into shreds. They have some of the most powerful weapons that exist. They have a Solari, or I forget what it's called, but it's basically a map of the galaxy. And if you were in that room and you poked a star, that star would go supernova.
Cool.
So just from sitting in this room, you could just go boop, 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 and blow everything up. They are incredibly powerful. But they have problems and they're not all awakened yet. So they're not a big problem yet. So they're somewhat in decline because of that as well. But they are back to try and make dominion, and they're sleepy, grumpy old men that you're sitting on their lawn. Get off my lawn.
The Necrons?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they have a lot more personality and fleshing out of them. They also have something called the Flare virus, which is a virus that affects some of them, that makes them think that they are still flesh and hunger for flesh. So because their necrodermis allows them to change their shape and stuff, they end up having elongated knife-like fingers. They can travel between dimensions and this own alternate dimension and just appear anywhere. Mm-hmm. And they are trying to eat meat, and they're flay, and they will just drape your skin all over them, and they're just dripping and rotting blood and carcass. But they think that they are. So yeah, that is Necrons. Gives you a bit of an idea of them.
Why are they the Space Marines' main enemy?
They just wanted to refresh the line for the Necrons.
Yep.
And you can't have a new launch box without Space Marines. Because...
How many people actually play the Space Marines?
It's where most people start off.
Okay.
So a lot of people still like them, but it's kind of any time a faction gets a new release, for the long time, the joke was that the Space Marines had to have their equal attention cake.
Yeah.
You know, that sibling that's yeah. On the tabletop, the Necrons are very slow. They have very powerful weapons, and they have different codes that they can be input in to do different things for them. They're kind of fun to play against. I actually played against them very recently, and they're quite fun.
Did they kick your butt?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because recently some of the changes has made their points, the ability to gain points in the game a lot easier. So it's very hard. Also, I am trash. Next up, we have Tyranids. Tyranids are bugs.
Ew.
So Though never a verdant world, the lifeless ball of rock we discovered was unrecognizable as Tyran Primus. The creatures that did this are a threat to the galaxy and must be exterminated by the light of the god Emperor. So there's not much to the Tyranids at the moment. They are bugs that are coming from outside of the galaxy and slowly coming in with hives. When they find a world, they just blot out the sun with different sized bugs and monsters and will eat the biomass of everything that was on the planet and move on. And they just eat. They have guns that shoot viruses that will eat you from the inside out, with bugs. They're bugs. There's not much to lore about them.
Yeah.
On the tabletop, they're a horde of bugs that just are unwavering and just consistently coming.
Yeah.
And we don't know much about them. The one thing is, though, is that they are coming from outside the galaxy, but they're coming from different angles.
Okay. Quick question for you.
Yeah.
Is that a burning man that she's stepping on?
Let me see.
Well, I'm going to give it to everyone so they can see what it is.
More than likely it is.
I think that's an actual decrepit man. Like, I think that's it. That's a something she, like, plasma lasered.
It's a chaos cultist.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Done. Cool.
Yep, she has burnt them alive.
Yeah.
So the hives are coming from different angles. So there's the very real chance that the bugs are just everywhere and are just encasing the entire galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
That we're surrounded and there's no way to get out.
Okay.
Now, the most terrifying thing about the Tyranids, though, is that when they come to a planet, they have something called the Shadow and the Warp, which is for if you're trying to get a message out through the warp, through telepathically, you can't. It's like there is this pressure that is on your mind. Something is watching you and prevents you, and it just drives you mad. So they actually, once you see Tyranids are coming into your planet, you can't get a message out. You can't get anything. You are just going to be eaten.
Okay.
They hungry. That's all they want to do.
Me hungry.
There's really not much else about them. They're just big bugs.
That's it? They have nothing else in their lore?
Because everything is a survivorship bias or survivorship stories. So the only thing that is known in the story right now is people that have survived against them. Like one of the main characters from the Ultramarines got his limbs chopped off and they almost completely destroyed the Ultramarines, which is to the joy of a lot of people because no one likes Ultramarines.
Why? Are they a type of space marine?
Because they're the poster boys. And they were made to be good. And yeah, they have different size. They have something called Old Bale Eye. They have different bugs. That's about it.
You don't seem like you're very impressed with them.
No, they're really... I like some of the models. They're really interesting. They're really cool. It's just there's not much to lore about them.
Yeah.
They bugs. What's more interesting about them is something called the Genestealer cults. So the Genestealer cults are basically, there is a unit in Tyranids called Genestealers that will creep up on hive worlds. So you know how the planets had these, New York, but like 5 layers deep of New York. Mm-hmm. A Genestealer would appear on a planet and it would infect some people and it would mess with the genetics of them. And over time and generations, they would start to have different beliefs. They would feel a little bit more connected to this greater mind. They would feel like there is a presence, angels of the Emperor that are coming to save them. And these are workers that are in the mines and everything else. They might be better at being working in the mines. They might be better at doing things in the factories. But they just start having different changes. So they might grow they might end up growing some weird bands on their heads. Mm-hmm. And they might start looking a little bit different.
What are these again? These
are the Genestealer cults. So they might, people might not question it too much. It's like, okay, well, it's just a normal mutation.
Yeah.
But over time, and once the time is right, is that they would revolt. And they would use improvised weapons and try and take over the planet. And they would get normal people to join in as well. But they would just, it's like a communist revolution kind of style is how this army is.
Mm-hmm.
I'll give you a quote. In the sunless body of our hive, the flock of the faithful grows. We are guided by our great Father's sacred vision, protected by his loving hands. Within these holy shadows we dwell, while the impure bathe in spire-top starlight. What lies between those stars? What sails beyond those distant suns? Shrouded in night, born within that eternal black, our redeemers, our gods, truer than the silent, long-dead emperor, the children of the void. We hear them in our dreams. We feel them in our blood. They call and we will answer. We will rise and claim the engines of labor that have bound us in servitude. This world will burn. It will be cleansed, purified, made ready, and the heavens will deliver our reward. So they just kind of manipulate the genetics, eventually have the entire planet revolt against the leaders. So that way, when the Tyranids show up, because they'll send a psychic message out, there's enough of them, they'll send and let the hive mind know, come here, we want you to come here.
Mm-hmm.
Tyranids will show up and eat everything that's on the planet.
Okay.
But the thing is that they're all kind of psychically bound. And when the Tyranids have finally taken over and they have pools of biomass that will break down people and everything so that way it can be used by the Tyranids.
Yeah.
They break the psychic bond of the Genestealer cultists. So that way they then, as the second before they die, know that they have betrayed everything they thought they believed in and have betrayed humanity.
Weird.
Yeah, they're very, very strange. But they're very insipid, so they have different ways of getting it. One of them is called the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor,
mm-hmm.
which when an inquisitor comes by, they might be seeing like effigies to the emperor. But instead of 2 arms, it has 4 arms. And like, okay, it's just a little bit of a weird way to worship the emperor.
Yeah.
A good inquisitor would be like, that's not good. But most people don't know what's happening. And for the Adepteus Mechanicus, they may see some of these changes and maybe like, oh, wow, they're stronger workers. That's perfectly fine. Like some of these cults are so good at their jobs that the Imperium is just like, we'll leave them be. We're getting our productivity up. Like we're getting more output.
Yeah.
Perfectly fine. Whatever. But that's their insipid thing, because then they spread to different worlds, getting stronger and stronger and allowing the Tyranids to then take over easier and easier. In the tabletop, they're kind of like, they have like manholes that you can put all over the board and you could just pop up units from anywhere. They used improvised weapons. Some of their bigger units have like stop signs that they use to beat things. They use rock saws and mining lasers, just improvised weapons in order to fight.
Yeah.
They're the ones that were fighting the Custodes, because there's a Genestealer cult that is underneath Holy Terra.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that they've gotten that close to the Emperor. So the Custodes are now out there trying to cleanse the cities of Terra of this infection. But that's the Genestealer cults. Yeah.
How many factions do we got left, man?
1.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it is, it depends on how you look, but they are the most benevolent and most good.
What are they?
They are the least evil. This is the Orkz.
Are you serious?
Yes, because the Orkz are simple. Who leads the Orkz? The biggest. Who is the best? The Orkz and the biggest orc. Biggest is best.
I big, I good.
I big, I
awesome.
good. They fight. All they want to do is fight. Just let me fight.
I'm just going to zoom in here, okay?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, they're cool.
Yeah. So, yeah, like fantasy orcs. So like they just want to fight and be evil and all this kind of stuff. I don't have any notes for them because orcs are simple. You have orc boys and they just constantly fight and punch each other if there's no one around. Their economy is based on teeth. So because they regrow their teeth so fast, they use their own teeth as currency.
That's ridiculous.
They are mushroom based and they were actually created by the old ones, originally called quark. because when they were created by them, they were 20-foot tall, crowd in like technological armor that would just beat and barrel through anything.
Yeah.
Their purpose was to do that. But once the Necrons went to sleep, the Eldar just went off and did their own thing. They didn't have anything to do. So they started fighting each other to the point where they devolved into big, dumb brutes. They became shorter. They're about 9 foot tall, but they're like hunched over.
Yeah.
And like, but they're just covered in muscles. But they just kept fighting each other, fighting. And they just became lesser and lesser and lesser. But the thing with the Orkz is their technology shouldn't work. So all of their stuff is kind of scrapped together. If their guns, if I were to take their gun and try and shoot it, it wouldn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Their like ships have a button that says go. Now the reason this works is because they have something called Wa power, but it's more like
what?
It's more like the power of imagination.
Yeah.
So what happens is if there's enough orcs around, and if they believe hard enough that something is true, it becomes reality.
Wow.
So if there's all of these orcs around that say this thing has wheels, it go fast. It will go fast.
Have you played against orcs?
I have.
And?
It's just absurd. Because they just shoot. They shoot bad, but they shoot hard and they shoot fast.
Yeah.
It's really they're fun, and all they want to do is have fun. That's the thing, is to them fighting is fun. Fighting is good. So if they're out there fighting a Humie, like a stupid Humie, because they have a very Cockney English footballer accent, like football hooligan. It's actually where their entire vibe for 40k orcs comes from, is football hooligans. Like to us, like they're brutally ripping us apart and shredding everything. But to them, they're just having the time of their lives. They don't feel as much pain because they're mushroom based. They're like spores.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is like when they're on a planet and the guard have come and killed off every single orc. The thing is, the orcs could come back because they're spores, and when they die, just go everywhere and just like kind of go out into the atmosphere, and they might just regrow. New orcs just appear.
Yeah.
And they just start wandering around, and they build weapons and build new guns, and they fight harder. Quote, "The orcs are the pinnacle of creation. For them, the great struggle is won. They have evolved a society which knows no stress or angst. Who are we to judge them? We Aeldari who have failed, or the humans on the road to ruin in their turn. And why? Because we sought answers to questions that an orc wouldn't even bother to ask? We see a culture that is strong and despise it as crude." They just want to fight. Biggest boss is best boss. And when they get enough of them together, they will make a Wa. And the Wa is them crying out war. And they will just go out, and the more of them will join because they want to join the big Wa and they want to fight harder. And they just keep fighting. The thing is, though, is that they have very weird beliefs, but these beliefs make a lot of sense in a way.
Mm-hmm.
They believe that red things go faster. So they paint their cars red because they'll go faster.
What the hell?
Blue is a lucky color. Or no, yellow is a lucky color. So those that are like have blue armor are luckier. Purple is the sneakiest color because have you ever seen a purple orc?
I don't think so.
No, you haven't. So it's sneaky.
I mean, I haven't seen any orc.
But they're all green. So they're all green skins, essentially.
Okay.
Green is the best color.
The best.
The best.
I like these orcs. Oh man. I could have played orcs too, I think. Could you mix and match your armies, or you're not allowed to?
No, unfortunately not.
Because you have to put a lot of work in. Like, I'll be honest, it's a big. It's also a big financial investment.
It can be, yeah.
Can be.
If you buy some used models, or if you pick like an army that you like. So another thing with the orcs too is that their food is squigs. And squigs are like little creatures that are made of the same thing as them. But they use squigs for everything. If they want to shoot better, they have a squig that will sit on their like shoulder, and it has like a targeting reticle as an eye.
That's cute.
And it's a targeting squig. Orcs don't have hair because they're mushrooms. So instead, when you see an orc that has like a ponytail or something, that's a hair squig. It is a creature that has attached itself to its skull.
Okay.
And they're squig. They have bomb squigs, which are little runt things that have like bombs in their mouth, will run up into the battle and explode. Like screaming, "Ree!" Like exploding. They have bitey squigs. They have fighting squigs. I have bat squigs. There's all these different kinds of squigs. Actually, sorry. I just realized something. Do you see that guy on his shoulder?
Yeah.
That's a targeting squig.
Aww.
And he has a hair squig.
Yeah, I saw. I was gonna say the orc picture you showed me has hair on it.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
That's a squig.
Holy moly! I finished up to 2E.
Nice. So the orcs are simple. They will scrap things together. So like they have scrap jets and scrap tanks. The thing is that any vehicle that's in the game is an orc vehicle. Because they will loot things. And they'll take it, and they'll be like, oh, that's mine. And they'll loot it, and that's how they make their things. Because they slam things together, and they say, okay, it works. A classic story when it comes to the orcs is that there's a faction, or a sub-faction of the orcs called the freebooters. Because they're freebooters. Like booters?
Oh my God. I thought you were saying Buddha. And I'm like, that's a little bit insensitive.
No, Buddhas, free Buddhas. They're pirates. They literally have like hats.
Oh,
they're super silly looking. They're like over the top, but they are pirates, and two of these ships came along one side of one another, and some of the orcs were outside of the ship fixing the ship, and the other ship came, like some of the orcs from the other side looked over at them and said, why don't you have any helmets on? You're in space. You're like, what do you mean? Oh, you can't breathe in space. And immediately all the ones that had no helmets on died. Because they didn't believe that space could kill them until the other orcs told them space could kill them.
No.
So the power of imagination allows them to believe things will work.
They're like kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like, it's pure imagination. And it just allows them to do whatever. But the thing is, like, they can have their heads decapitated, and they have a dock, which is just an orc that has like a bone saw and some needles. And in game, what'll happen is like you roll a dice when the dock comes over to a unit. If the unit has some dead orcs, it will, like if you roll a 6, you'll bring back 2 orcs. Because an orc could have its head chopped off. The dock puts the head back on. It's alive again. Yeah. Power of belief.
Yeah.
But the thing is, because they're so stupid that if you roll a 1, you kill another orc. Because the dock is not likely to actually heal as much as he is to kill. They're really, really dumb. But they're fun.
I mean, Death Funny's cute.
Yeah.
They are. They really are.
They just want to have fun. And I won't do the accent. I'll try and find you some samples.
Just want to have fun.
Because they like the stupid humies.
You just did the accent.
Yeah, I can't do
Just
it
go
well.
for it. Just go for it.
Oh, I need an orc quote to do that, so that way I can try it.
All right.
Orc quotes. Let's see. Let's see. Now, where's we gonna get enough red paint to make something as huge as this killing cruiser go faster?
This sounds Gaelic. You are Scottish by heritage too. This is funny.
It's because it's supposed to be like a soccer hooligan, like.
Yeah. No, it sounds Gaelic, like you know what I mean, like that very harsh type of accent you can get in Scotland.
Bosh, shouldn't we have appeared over there? I can't do it. But no,
you literally sound Welsh now.
So they have 2 gods, Gork and Mork. One of them is brutal but cunning. The other one is cunning but brutal.
Mm-hmm.
And in the warp, they are constantly fighting one another and they believe in one or the other. There is, and this goes to show kind of some of the political leanings, but there's a character named Gazgul Maguruk Thraka.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Gazgul, take the rest of that name. Maguruk Thraka. And remember, this is from Britain in the 80s.
I don't remember it.
Margaret Thatcher.
Oh,
Thraka.
There we go.
He is the prophet of Gork and Mork. Typically, they follow one or the other, and he is the big boss. So he's a big boy who is now trying to go out into the world and fight things. But yeah, that's the orc and the orcs. And that's, I'm going to put it to 95 to 99 to all of the factions that are in 40k that you can play on the tabletop.
So that is all the factions that you can play on the tabletop in a nutshell in probably around 2 hours.
Oh, if I get it under 2 hours, I'll be happy.
So just to show how much time it takes to do these, I finished my Retributor squad.
Yep.
We did that over 2 episodes, actually. The episode before and then this one.
Yep.
And then I've only done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of my, what's this called? The Combat Patrol. And there's 26 miniatures in it.
Yep.
Holy shit. That's a lot.
Yeah.
I was feeling it in my elbows, actually.
I'm feeling it in my throat. I don't know if I'll be able to talk for a bit. All
right. So why don't we do this? Let's wrap this up. I hope everyone had an amazing time listening to this episode, watching me build, watching me suffer, watching or listening to Nick kind of take me through all the different factions within 40k. We will timestamp them down below. And don't forget, if you guys like what you see, please comment, subscribe. We have a Patreon down below. We have a website as well. It's inreallore.com, and our Patreon is patreon.com/inreallore. You'll get access to our Discord server on that, and we can chat about this a little bit further. Without further ado, I think we are going to sign off for today. Peace.
Bye.